We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And this will be the, starting out with the informational meeting on the FY27 budget. So we will start with a quick explanation of how we got to this point, and then we'll turn it over and get some details about the budget, and we'll open it up for discussion. So this year, our budget process started early. We had a pretty extensive walk through the budget. We put together a budget work group that met multiple times looking at every line item of the budget. We challenged the administration to look for and find efficiencies within the budget in order to help reduce the overall tax impact while maintaining as many student programs and making minimal impact as we could. After many meetings with the budget committee, the full board was briefed, and we continued that work for another couple of months in order to produce the budget that we currently have that's been adopted by the board. So some factors that were important in this budgeting conversation were changes in federal funding for the supervisory union, which had an impact on our assessments, as well as the years of use of fund balances. So not only have we used fund balances in previous years, but we used some fund balances this year, as has the state. So we're looking at some impacts in the budget from fund balances. And the final component that we were looking at is changes to the way that education funding has been done previously. So we are back to a point where we have penalties for spending over the threshold. That was suspended for a little while, but the penalties are back. So the direction the board went was to try to get our per pupil spending under the threshold. And that's kind of the process we went through. Those are the factors we looked at. Though I don't know, we haven't adopted a yield yet, so we still won't know.
No, but there is, the bill is out there.
So
Yeah.
we're still waiting on one final multiplier, I guess we'd call it, in the budget.
Yeah.
But the legislature is not finalized yet, so we still don't have an exact impact on the tax rates, but we expect that'll come sometime between now and whenever they end the session.
June 1st, I think.
June. So tax.
She does have the tax rate here from the first yield number, but
Right.
we assume that
And I
the yield will
think,
go up and that the tax implications will go down.
yes, yes,
Based on the current
Based
proposal.
on your
Proposal.
proposal,
yes.
That proposal doesn't necessarily cross the finish line.
correct.
So that's where we are at. Do you want to talk about the highlights?
I have it, I did have it, sharing it on my screen.
How do you rest the screen?
What happened to it? It says you are screen sharing.
Can people at home see Heidi's
There we go.
presentation? Okay.
Okay. So what I am doing is I'm just kind of, if you have an annual report, I'm going through this page by page, starting on 17. If you need an annual report, there are some around here, right? There's,
That might be all.
is it taken? Okay. So just to, thank you, Drew, for giving a little bit of update. What's behind this. I will talk a little bit about the Windham Central budget as we go through this, so I'm gonna start there. There was, previous to this year for the Windham Central budget, there was 4 budgets. There was the early childhood special education budget, there was the multi-tiered systems of support budget, there was the superintendent's budget, and there was a fee-for-service budget. The SU board worked with the office to try to condense them into 2 budgets, which is what we adopted this year. It is a general fund budget and a multi-tiered system of support budget. So there's been some trying to make this simpler, but it's the most confusing for this year with all the changes. The general fund budget, which was the superintendent's budget, but also with some changes, is up 10.4%. This was mainly due to rising salary and benefit costs, but also the reassignment of some staff from the MTSS budget into the general fund budget. The multi-tiered systems of support budget, which now includes the early childhood special education assessments, was a 3.4% increase over last year's expenses. The grant funding caused that particular, the MTSS budget, to go from a 3.4 increase to essentially a 49.2% increase, because we were losing funding and we had carryover funds, and essentially we were gonna be short about $700,000 going from the current budget year to the next budget year. So that is what based such a huge increase in that particular budget. The board then decided that obviously we couldn't afford to have that kind of an increase, so we are using $800,000 of a fund balance for the MTSS budget, which brings that increase down to 21.89% of an increase. Now, West River, when we do the allocations of these budgets into West River, we use for the general fund budget the students that are in the buildings. This includes, the business office, it includes technology, includes professional development, and so that number of West River students of the whole SU of students in buildings is about 65.6%. So West River does pay the majority of that allocation because there's so many students that's how that's determined. The MTSS budget, we have to, we pay for special education regardless of where our students in our towns go. So whether they go to private schools, whether they're in our public schools, the cost is there. So when we determine the cost for the MTSS budget, it is based on a 2-year average of the long-term average daily membership. And West River has 53% of SU students of all the school districts in our supervisory union. So keep that in mind. The increase for the general fund assessment for West River is up 4.08% from the current year. And the increase for the multi-tiered systems of support is up almost 19% from the current year. The other piece that gets comes from the SU that's sort of, you could call it a fee for service, but the after school programming is separate. It is a line item in your budget, but previously you had funded $300,000 towards after school programs in West River, and between Jamie getting some grants and whatnot, we're able to just bring it down to $100,000 this year, so you are saving $200,000 in that respect. And that grant is a 5-year grant, so that should will hopefully be maintaining that. The spending per pupil for the West River budget overall came in above the threshold at $16,865 when we put this final budget together. It was $240 per student over the threshold, and so when that happens, you add the $240 onto the per pupil cost, which would have given you a tax base of $17,105 per pupil. The board didn't want to make taxpayers pay a penalty, and so the board decided to use some fund balance, which is decreasing substantially, but we're using about $350,000 to bring that under the threshold so that our cost per pupil will stay at just under, and you'll see that as we get to the tax sheet. Long-term weighted ADM, the long-term weighted average daily membership of students for West River actually increased this year, which was really helpful, to 861. This is not the actual number of students, this is weights added to students. So you have your student, which is, $1, you could say, and then if they have English as a second language, it adds $2.49 to that $1. Because we are in sparse schools and rural areas, we have small weights added. So if you have students that are under the poverty level, there's more weights added. So the way the state puts all those weights together, we came in at 861, which is up from 840 even though the actual student numbers haven't changed much. And then there's the CLAs for each town, which ranges all over the place. And again, when we get to the tax document, you'll see the difference of the common level of appraisal for each of these towns. On the next page, we have a list of reductions of funds. Oh, thank you. I'm just gonna go down. Yeah, I just scanned it in, so like, yeah. So we have the reductions that the board and the central office work together to try to maintain some low cost of increases. So at this point in time, the budget that is being presented to voters to vote on has reduced a pre-K program out of the Jamaica Village School, leaving one pre-K program at Townsend. We have looked at pre-K populations coming in, and we do feel that there is enough room at the Townsend pre-K program to absorb most of the students from these current towns. Many of the Newfane residents tend to go in another direction, so the numbers between Townsend and Jamaica all fall within what could potentially enroll at Townsend. We have reduced the general music staff by 0.1 FTE, so maintaining one full day of music, however that looks, whether it's 2 half days or 1 full day between Townsend and Newbrook. We have a reduction of the art staff by 0.1 FTE, again, keeping 1 full day at each of the elementary schools. We've reduced some of the enrichment funds for the 2 elementary schools. They'll still have $7,500, I believe, in each school to spend on enrichment programs, hoping to supplement with any parent organizations. Our capital building projects, we've decided to only move $50,000 into the capital building fund this year. You know, we've talked to Greg, and he feels like we can sort of take a year where we're still okay with most things. I mean, you have some fund balance, so if there was an emergency, we can cover it, but there's no big project scheduled for this coming year. The after-school program was reduced by $200,000. Library staff reduction of 0.5 FTE. This is an elementary position in which we have decided to utilize 1 librarian for the whole West River group. They will work at Leland and Gray, as well as doing a day, whatever that looks like, 2 half days, 1 full day at each of the elementary schools. We are gonna help supplement Leland and Gray's needs with hiring a paraeducator who can help cover the library for the needs of the staff and students when it isn't an actual library day. We had, by natural attrition, we had a reduction in the Spanish program because you have a driver's ed teacher that is retiring, and so a current staff member is gonna pick up that piece. So Spanish will be reduced by 0.5, well, that half goes to driver's ed. There is, I believe, a retirement in the English department, which is gonna be a reduction of 0.33 FTE. There is a slight change to the music program at Leland and Gray, but only 0.1 FTE. There's still going to be 2.6 FTE. So we're hoping to maintain pretty much the same level of services that's been happening at Leland and Gray. There was a reduction of PBL intensive supply budget by $25,000. There is some Journey Away fund balance of about $190,000, and so the board decided that we're gonna start utilizing that a little bit each year. Hopefully that will last about 8 years if we use like $25,000 a year to help continue to support the intensives. And there was a partial reduction of funding for VEMSA and the BDCC program. I think Bobbitt was working with them and Dana to still utilize some sort of services. BDCC was willing to work with us. So those are the main reductions of the budget we've brought. The cost drivers have been the increases from the WCSU general fund budget and the multi-tiered systems of support budget. There are the negotiated salary increases for the certified staff. We were a little under budget for the current year, so it's all being made up for in the next year's budget. Their health and dental care cost increases were between 7 and 8%. The insurances have increased substantially for liability, building, auto, workers' comp, so that's catching up with us in this fiscal '27 budget. There's the paraeducator I spoke about for the library here in Leland and Gray. There's been an increase of students attending voc ed, and so our cost to voc ed has increased. And the support staff are currently in negotiations for increases, so I've set aside some money there for when they come out of negotiations. So those are really your cost drivers, just to give you a little understanding. Is there any questions before I move on? Dana?
Transportation.
Transportation went up, but you are gonna be paying Windham a little bit more. Last year I didn't move some of that cost increase onto Wardsboro for their part, and so they're paying a 10% increase to make up for last year and my lack of increasing for them. So you're not seeing a huge increase from West River Transportation because they're kind of absorbing it in River Valleys. Okay, going on to the next page is just some information, some school enrollment figures that Samson and I put together for a 7-year period. It just shows you we've decreased about 100 students since 2019. As you can see though, last year and this year we've stayed pretty similar, so that's encouraging. The next page is really about town students coming from individual towns, which I think is very interesting. There is a total of 437 students enrolled or in towns attending our schools, and of that, 32.8 is Newfane residents, 33.5 are Townsend residents, 16.5 are Jamaica residents, 13.29 are Brookline, and then about 3% is Windham. That's what makes up the students in the seats in our buildings. And then the next chart gives you an overview of students and where they're attending that live in our towns. You can see about 11% go to private school and about 7.5% are homeschooled, but otherwise the 82% are in our public schools.
And the private number includes pre-K.
It does include pre-K, yes. Thank you,
It's a little bit
yes.
inflated.
Yeah. So something to look at, okay. Moving on is a overview of the final budget. The top half gives you an overview of revenue. Revenue is up a little bit, 4.5%. Some of that is though through taxes. Investments for the district have been doing pretty well. They've been around 3.5% interest on treasury bills. I move it around to try to get as much interest coming in, which has been very helpful in the last year, and I'm hoping it will be just as helpful, but it isn't quite as high as last year. So then looking down through the expenditures, I can quickly tell you that when you look at direct instruction at the top, some of that decrease is about the pre-K reductions, the fact that there is one less teacher, and in the elementaries, one less para-educator. You can, as you go down, driver's education has a big bump. That's 54.4%. That's all about insurance, really. When you're working with those small numbers, it makes a difference. World language, and then of course, there's a different person in that position, so that also is part of the 54%. The 18% reduction in world language is the staff member who's only gonna be part-time, or 0.5 FTE. You can see there's continuing some reductions, music education, project-based learning, because we've taken some of the expenses out of it. The MTSS is there, the 18% increase. The VOC education with more students going is up 36%. As you move down, the summer after-school summer program, that's your significant decrease right there for 66.7. School nurses are up 16.5%. We have added in new AED machines because the other ones are actually out of date, and so we're trying to make sure we have everything for safety purposes that we need. Then we have, just going down to see the reduction in library, the 32.7. That's the reduction of 0.5 FTE. I've made some cuts when it comes to legal services because we weren't needing as much. Technology is up 15.1. Part of that is that Matt Martin has a project and we have E-rate funding coming in, a pretty substantial amount. And so in order to use E-rate, which is federal funding, to help pay for some of the projects, and this is sort of he is upgrading some of the levels of networks so that we can start to get better internet connection with the ability to go with faster services. So it's sort of setting us up for the next decade. The costs are probably around 100,000. So we have to come up with 20% to get E-rate to pay 80%. So we have put some funding in there to help get that $80,000. So that's the technology. We have some savings in operation of buildings because we'll have less buildings, so we'll be able to take care of the plowing and such for the upkeep of grounds on our own. There is a little bit of a increase in security, and that's based on the need for some new cameras and radios around the district, so we're hoping to get that done. And overall, otherwise, much of what little increases you see are health insurance, salary increases, and some insurances, which brings us down to the 3.7% increase of the overall budget. Again, this would in fact be, the 3.7% would in fact be over the threshold per pupil. So when we go on to, let's see, a couple pages in, let me just go out of order for a second, pull up the budget tax calculator. No, oh yeah, page 24 if you have the annual report in front of you. Whoa, catch up to me. I love that internet. Okay. So that number of $15,368,313 is the expenditure budget that is being asked of voters to approve, which is the budget we just went over. Offsetting revenue is the 4.5% increase of revenue, also with some fund balance being used. And you can see the breakdown in the two columns. So some of you may recall that West River has an A and a B. West River, WRED-A is the elementary schools and WRED-B is the high school, because Windham is a part of our district for high school only. So when I do the tax calculations, the state requires us to separate out the two. So I've broken it down. You can see at the very top of the page there's a percentage, very close, the amount of students between the two long-term weight ADM between the two A and B. 59.5 for elementary, 50.50 for the high school. So everything is broken down, the expenditures and the offsetting revenue by that percentage. The offsetting revenue is actually broken down a little bit differently to help with our tax rate. Heidi did a little finagling there. But it brings it down so that your per pupil cost is $14,174, I'm sorry, that's the 14 million is what it brings it down to. And then 16,458 is the per pupil, but we are allowed to reduce the bond that we currently have, that we have for a couple more years. And so because of the exclusions for that bond, it takes us down to 16,303. However, we have to use the original 16,458. We qualify to get under the threshold, but we don't get to use that number for under the threshold. So we take that per pupil spending and we use the yield. And so the yield that they suggested we use to start with is 8,849. That hopefully will change, but that's what's gonna set us up for my calculations for the taxes. So based on 8,000, and let me explain that the yield is determined based on the education fund. So we all pay into the ed fund, and depending on the towns and what everybody spends, the determination of the yield is what everybody spends. So Vermont AOE gets all the data about how much everybody is spending and determines then on how much they can afford the shortfall, or what's, if it's enough to cover everything, and then they determine what the yield can be. So I'm sure many of you have heard that they're looking at some reserves to help buy down the taxes. It will be determined in the yield. The yield goes up and your tax rates go down. So when we were using 8,849, it was based on an expectation that budgets would be coming in around 11 or 12%. Overall, many school districts have worked really hard to get it below that.
No, I think the average is around 4. Was it?
I think it's more like 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that they're hoping the yield is gonna bring it down.
I thought I heard 4 the other day, but I could be
Okay,
wrong.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been changing.
It's 4.1, I think.
Oh, thank you, Emily, 4.1, okay. And so since it is doing much better, that's where they're expecting the yield to maybe go up a little bit, which will help with our taxes. So on this report, let me just go down here a little bit, those numbers, so we look at the CLAs for each of the towns. The bottom of this shows what the state considers your common level appraisals depending on what town you live in. So you'll see Brookline at 107.42, Jamaica 49.43, Newfane 59.76, Townsend 58.10, and Windham 96.05. And then the town is, and then the state is taking a state adjusted percentage, trying to bring everybody more in line to give a more fair CLA and tax rates, I guess. And they're using 70.33, which is a little lower than last year's 72%. So it's these statewide adjusted tax common level of appraisal numbers that we use to determine the tax rate. So you'll see in the middle in the middle chart right there, the 152.74 for Brookline, that's your state adjusted common level of appraisals in that column. And you'll see the current year's tax rates, and then based on this budget that the board has will bring to the voters, along with the yield and the per pupil spending, using the reserve funds of 350,000, your tax rates are in the green. So anywhere from 1.2 down to 2.646 for Jamaica. You'll see that the variance is in the white column of how much cents is increasing. So Jamaica's looking at a 26-cent increase. Windham is looking at a 3-cent increase, Brookline 11 cents, and it gives you the percentage of how much that increase, and an estimate. It's only an estimate, but an estimate of how much your taxes would go up based on 100,000 house site value. So, yes.
No, I was gonna have you take a breath there, because
Okay.
you've just been like going straight out.
Okay.
And a couple of quick things I wanna highlight from what she said, just so everyone kind of understands this. I know the board members certainly have heard us talk about this, but the 3 things to highlight. One, the yield is gonna be adjusted potentially because the state is gonna use some reserve funds to help buy down taxes. district is using reserve funds to help buy
Yeah.
down taxes. And the SU is using reserve funds to help bring down that assessment amount. So let that sink in, for those who don't know what that means is that we're, in a sense, pushing a problem down the road to a future tax year. So just wanna make sure everyone kinda understands that that's the nature. So even with these numbers, and even if these tax rates go down, it's been artificially created. So I just want people paying attention, I wanna remind people of that. Yeah, and I want to give Heidi a break from talking.
I've been known to go on and on.
Me too.
Does anybody have any questions about that part of the calculations or?
So you said that we are under the threshold, but we don't qualify for the threshold. Could you explain what that means?
I just mean that while the bond payment brings the number in the calculation below the threshold, so that the state knows that we qualify and that we're under the threshold, the actual per pupil spending is what we pay. So if you look at,
So by using the reserve funds, we're getting below a threshold.
by using the exclusions of the bond, we are getting these per pupil spending below the threshold, which qualifies us to not pay a penalty.
Okay,
That's the piece.
I was
That makes
wondering
sense?
if that.
I'm sorry, okay.
Okay.
We don't pay the penalty,
Got it.
we just pay the amount.
But without the reserve
Without
fund
the-
usage, we would have gone over, right?
Without the, yes, without reserve funds, we would have been over that, we would have been at 17, yeah. Anybody else? Other than that, those are the big pieces of the budget. There are other, just informational graphs. You know, I think it's very interesting, the healthcare costs, which the district, the supervisory union, we have no control over. The state negotiates healthcare, and what page is that on?
Number
22 has the chart which shows a 68% increase in how much healthcare has cost West River since fiscal year 22, so going into 27. It's significant, and it is definitely a cost driver, and maybe Emily would be able to speak to whether that's gonna be ever looked at. I keep hearing that it's something the AOE is gonna look into, but I think that's gonna be a few years down the road. And the next page, 23, just is the fund balances that, these were unaudited. Actually, the one I have up on the screen is pretty much my audited one, which is a little bit different than what's in the annual report. So the general fund is a little bit lower. I'm just about done with that audit. They've come in very late. So this is a little bit more accurate than the one that I put in that was unaudited at the time. But you can see the different funds that we keep track of that represent different special revenue that comes in, different grants, different projects that different schools have. There's the trust fund, there's the capital building and the capital water project that finished up this last year, student activity account. So just to show you from year to year what those changes are. And then the last pages of the annual report are the 3-year prior comparisons, and that's a requirement from the AOE that is in there every year that gives you a chance to really look at the increases of the general the expenditure budget that you're approving and what the pupil counts are, but again, that changed. Last year we had long-term weighted ADM, but before that was it called equalized pupils. They weren't weighted the same way, so it's hard to compare apples to apples when they keep changing things up.
And there's 2 of these because there's one for A and one for B.
B. Yeah. So it goes back over the same things that are in some of the other documents, so. That is it for me, unless there's any questions. Missed anything? Okay.
I have a question, and this may be with the closure of Marlboro, will that affect the percentage that we will pay of the WCSU budget?
It's a great question. And so, well,
Not next year.
yeah, because there's still things that Marlboro is trying to do. One of the things that when schools are not operating, we usually remove is the technology piece. However, Marlboro is still trying to decide if they're going to have after-school programs, they're still gonna be running technology in their building. So at this point in time, it's staying the same. I do think that there is some, two of the title grants that I did not anticipate receiving, Title II and Title IV. I see that the federal government passed some. And so I'm waiting to find out what that's gonna look like. And I have spoken to the SU board a little bit, the chair, about the allocations, the assessments that we've created, do not use those. But I am happy to wait to charge assessments until we see what we're getting, because if it can help, if we get that funds, it will reduce that MTSS assessment, and I will just go back and figure out what to actually charge the assessments.
The longer version of my answer is that the MTSS, the allocation for West River for MTSS won't change because that's total number of students anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's the general fund assessment that's based on kids in buildings that the following year we will adjust. But because this was already
Yes. because
adopted
of
by the
Marlboro,
SU board,
yes.
that will get adjusted from Marlboro. And our percentage, which was already pretty high in West River, will go up higher.
Marlboro still pays the general fund assessment because they still utilize the business office. It's the
But
technology
just the technology,
piece.
okay, right. So it'll be adjusted.
They wouldn't pay towards any food,
Right.
but that's minor. Yeah.
So,
Does that answer your questions?
Other questions?
I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
This is all based on if Jamaica chooses to close their building. What will we have to do as a board if Jamaica does not choose to close their school?
It's a great question. The board at that point will have to decide how they choose to meet the articles of agreement, which require some level of direct instruction happening in the building. And we'll have operational expenses that were not budgeted.
It'll be deficits, I think.
So that means if they choose not to close the school, there will need to be some instruction happening in the building. Thank you.
Other questions?
Drew, just to be able to hear this, we will be doing a shorter version of this again at the annual meeting, along with the rest of the articles for the annual meeting. On the, whatever day that is.
Yeah, next
Seven.
Tuesday. Next week.
Next
Next
Tuesday.
Week from now.
So, yeah, we won't probably go into quite as much detail, but we'll, depending on who the audience members are, what different people need to hear and ask questions, but we will be doing the same informational stuff again with that. So,
All right. Nice job, Ike.
and if you did not get one of these and you have been able to locate one, they're in every school building, every town office, and the central office, and almost every, I'm not gonna say every, but almost every store in the district. So we deliver them to all sorts of places. So,
Thank you for that.
Anything else for informational meeting? And we'll move on to our regular board meeting. And are there any changes to the agenda?
I think so.
All right, we'll move on to student reports.
Hi.
Hello. We'll start out with intensives. Everyone had an amazing time with intensives. Groups went to China, DC, London, Belize, Florida, and New Orleans. Others were also able to gain really cool experience here in our home community. April 17th is the intensive showcase, which you all are invited to if you'd like to come. When you arrive, you check in at the front office, and that's 9 a.m. to noon.
So April 17th, 9 a.m. to noon. Please come. We'd love to show you all these great experiences that we had. We had a lot of things going on. So we had our VT cap testing last week, which was successful, and I think everyone who didn't have the test enjoyed the late start to sleep in.
Yeah.
Last Monday, we also had a guest speaker come in, Tiffany Jewell, and she's the author of This Book is Anti-Racist. She spoke about her childhood, her teaching career, and racism, and how we can help solve that ongoing issue. So everybody got one of her books, and then she held a signing, and people could get their books signed, which was really cool. And then today we also had, well, actually we'll talk about that later, so we'll move on.
Sports basketball has come to an end. Return of the Rebels happened, which is where alumni get together to play for the annual alumni game. Basketball, or I already said that. Baseball, softball, ultimate disc, and track and field season is starting up. We all had our first practices today, which were pretty fun. And then theater. The Thespian Society made sure Leland Gray hosted the One Act Play Regional Festival here this year. The schools that came were Milton, Rutland, Hartford, and we were there. Leland and Gray won, and they are moving on to perform their play at the New England Regional Theater Festival, April 10th and 11th, I believe.
Wow. That's right.
And then exciting news for the band and choir. New England's was March 19th, and we had some Leland Gray representation, and one of them's in here. Hey, Addison. And then some of our honors clubs are working on some great things. Last week, well, was it last week? No, I think it was the week before. They're all blending together. We had parent-teacher conferences, which was great because we revamped them this year, where there were meetings in your classrooms, and student council helped facilitate that along with other great students. It was good. We hosted like a chips and guac. We had a hangout in the library. Children were expected to show their PLP, which is their project. What's it called?
Project.
Personalized learning
development
plan.
Yep, that's the word.
Obviously, we're really great at it, guys. No, but seriously though, it was great because students got to take like ownership in their learning and what's going on in the classroom and show off their work.
And the new way that we're doing parent-teacher conferences is that it's actually all student-led. So we're encouraging students to go so that they can lead their own conferences. It's not like the teacher leads it or the parents lead it. It's more or less the student showing off themselves.
Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, NHS is still working on their alumni panel, which will be May 22nd. So again, if any alumni is interested, reach out to either me, another NHS member, or Miss Anthony. Oh, and prom, we're having our first meeting official tomorrow to start planning. We've already done a lot of prep, but we're going to be hosting prom at the New Fame Union Hall, and we're working on a theme right now. So, to be continued.
That's it.
Questions? Thank you. All right, we'll open up for public comment.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
When is prom?
Oh, prom is going to be May 19th, I believe. Or no, it's the 16th, right? Yeah.
Okay, you need to get with me to reserve the hall.
Yes.
I'm not even sure.
Girl, that's not me, that's
All right. So, just state your name when you speak for the minutes, please. Go ahead.
Sure. Hello, my name is Roy O'Donnell. I'm here to speak on behalf of the proposed neutrality policy, which I know is a big discussion for tonight. I've been a social studies educator at Leland and Gray for the last 8 years. During this time, I have worked with the department to bring back the mandatory civics curriculum for all students as a goal to meet the C3 standards as adopted by the state of Vermont education quality standards that was adopted in, I believe it was July of 2025. Those standards state that young people make informed and reasoned decisions for the public good as citizens of a culturally diverse, democratic society in an interdependent world. Our own district equity policy, which this board adopted, states that we aim to foster a more just and equitable society by empowering students and staff to recognize and challenge injustices in our communities through education and through advocacy. This policy, this neutrality policy, which I hope you all have in front of you, is confusing and, whether intended or not, challenges the freedom of professionals like myself from equipping our students with the knowledge to take action. Well, as a social studies teacher, I could quote Adams, Franklin, Lincoln, Jefferson, FDR on the importance of education in a democracy. I will choose Socrates today. Democracy is only as good as the education that surrounds it. The goal of education here in this country is not knowledge, but action. We should be teaching our students to leave America better than they found it. I implore you to trust the professionals in the classrooms and the administration that you've hired to do this work. So I would request the representatives from Newfane, Brookline, and Windham who crafted this policy to answer my one question is, what significant perspectives, as the policy states, am I missing in my classroom? My other call to action would be that any board member here does have the right to request to reopen public comment, which I would encourage you do after discussing the policy, to encourage a respectful and courageous dialogue as we do every day in our classrooms. Thank you, and I want to thank Andrew so much for helping us out in DC. Thank you.
Other public comment? Yes, go ahead.
My name is Kevin Burke. I'm a design and tech teacher here at Leland and Gray. I'm writing to express my opposition to policy D30 as currently drafted. I want to begin by acknowledging that the stated goals of this policy, supporting civic education, protecting students from coercion, and encouraging critical thinking, are important. I share those goals. However, the issue is not the intent. The issue is how this policy is written, how it would function in practice. Neutrality and advocacy are defined here in ways that are too broad, too vague, and too variable to be applied consistently. When standards are unclear, they do not guide practice, they invite interpretation. And in a school setting, interpretation often follows pressure rather than professional judgment. This creates a structural problem. Teachers are being asked to navigate uncertain boundaries while also facing the possibility of formal review if those boundaries are perceived to have been crossed. That combination, vague rules with real repercussions, does not produce clarity, it produces caution. And cautious teaching in this context means pulling back from current events, civic processes, and real-world applications of history in government, not because those topics lack value, but because they begin to carry risk. That is the chilling effect this policy introduces. It is also important to recognize that the concerns this policy attempts to address are not new, and they are not unregulated. Existing policies already prohibit coercion, misuse of district resources, and an inappropriate staff conduct. Those guardrails are in place. This proposal does not fill a gap. It duplicates, expands, and blurs. And that blurring matters. We are here in part because of a recent situation in which students engaged with a current civic issue and expressed themselves. From what has been presented, staff provided information, not instruction. Context, not coercion. Students made their own decisions. That is not a failure of the system, that is the system working. Public education is not strengthened by responding to that kind of moment with a broader restrictions and looser language. It is strengthened by trusting trained educators to guide students through complex topics with care, balance, and professionalism. This policy shifts that balance. It moves from professional discretion to public dispute, from instructional judgment to interpretive challenge. It places educators in a defensive posture where the safest course is to often say less, avoid more, and engage less deeply. That is not a standard that strengthens schools. There is also the question of stewardship. The board's responsibility includes careful use of public resources. Policies that introduce vague standards and expanded grounds for complaint increase the likelihood of time-consuming investigations, administrative burden, and potential legal exposure. Even when such claims are unfounded, they require time, attention, and public resources to address. This reduces the effectiveness of both administration and teaching staff in practical terms, diminishes the return on investment for taxpayers. If the concern is coercion or misuse of resources, these issues can and should be addressed clearly and directly using the policies we already have. But this proposal reaches further, and in doing so risks narrowing instruction in ways that do not serve students. For these reasons, I oppose this policy in its current form. Thank you.
Next.
My name is Joe Toll. I've been teaching at Leland and Gray for almost 29 years. As a person and as a professional, I want to feel that I am trusted. This policy does not feel like the school board trusts its teachers. I've heard administrators claim that the morale is low among teachers here. I agree with that. This policy is making that morale even worse. I'm a professional with decades of experience, a master's degree, over 100 credits beyond my BA, currently in a second master's program. This policy feels like the board is telling me that they do not trust my training as a professional to teach what the state of Vermont has already deemed appropriate to teach. We don't need another policy. We already have policies in place. What we need to do is trust the professionals, the professional educators we have hired to do the jobs. Please reject this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any hands up online? Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Addison Stickler. I'm a senior in high school. It's nice to meet all of you. I see a couple people I know, a few people I know, a few people I don't know, but you're all part of the community, and I want to address all of you as best I can. I'm sorry, Mr. O'Donnell, but I am going to quote FDR and say his most famous quote, which is, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." And as my history teachers have taught me, the most important part of any historical moment, of any historical idea, is the context surrounding it. What was the context of that quote? The context was the Great Depression. And there was the Great Depression, as I hope all of you know, was arguably the worst economy we've experienced. There's one thing I think that was worse than the economy in the world at that time, in America at least. It was the trust for our government, or the people's trust of their government, I should say. And so that's what FDR did. As much as his policies helped the economy, as much as his policies affected things in the future that were in great ways, the real thing he did was that he did things that restored the people's trust in the government. Because what happened with the Great Depression, people didn't trust the banks, people didn't trust the government. They weren't buying bonds, they weren't buying stocks. They were pulling all their money out of the bank, and that caused these massive crashes. And so FDR restored trust, and people were buying bonds. There was all these investments happening. That's how you grow a great economy. And it's the same thing at the school, because a school body is, I think, much like a government in many ways. I mean, you guys are much like a Senate in many ways. And so the school, the job of I think, looking at the context, as I said with the historians, looking at the context of what this policy is, how it was formed, why it was written, the discussions before it, the discussions happening during it, and the discussions that will happen after it, is there's a fear, I think, among a lot of people of the school and of the administration and of teachers. And I think inherently that fear is the most deadly thing that can happen to an administration, to a teacher body, and to a student body. Because as we've seen time and time again throughout history, when people lose trust in the authoritative figures, the first things that go away with that fear are the finest attributes of that administration. And this policy is, I think, a great example of that. The first things that we take away as a result of our fear is going to be the ability for discourse, for the free market of ideals to exist in the classroom. I think a big part of this is there's a fear of discomfort. Students might be uncomfortable with something a teacher has on their wall, or a conversation that's facilitated by the teacher, per se. And this is something I experienced at this school that I haven't experienced at other schools when I lived in New York, and I think is one of the best parts of this school, and the reason that I love this school so much is that the beautiful thing about that is if a student and a teacher that I greatly admire express this probably more elegantly than I can express it. A teacher that I greatly admire expresses that if you disagree with something I say in the classroom, a political statement, a social statement, whatever it is, then you can come to me and disagree, and we can have a disagreement. And then if I bring research and I bring facts and you don't have research and facts, then you can go home. And you can go on your phone and your computer, on your school Chromebook, any day you want. And you can come with the research and facts you have. And we can have a discussion. And that, I think, is the most valuable, important part of a democracy, of a free market of ideals that which America is founded on. Because inherently, I think teachers are the final defenders of democracy. And if a teacher is not allowed to discomfort students, to facilitate discussions, to prepare students for a world that is full of disagreements and challenges, if the teachers can't do that, then the last safeguard of democracy falls, and dark times, I think, lay ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back row.
Hi, I'm Haley Felker of West Townsend. I am reading a statement from a student here, Marley Felker. Starting with a disclaimer, I'm writing this as I board/take off on a flight to Costa Rica. Apologies if things are unclear, and sorry I couldn't be there to read this myself. I am a senior at Leland & Gray, an involved community member and young adult, and I vehemently oppose this policy. I believe this is incredibly unfair and disrespectful towards the teachers. It is my interpretation that this policy is being suggested as a result of fear. Fear from the community and parents that if politics are talked about in school, their children will be harmed or feel unsafe. These concerns are valid. It is clear to everyone that safety is a priority when it comes to creating a conducive learning environment. However, I believe the idea that this policy will keep anyone safe is not true. Politics deal with identity. We all have an identity, and all identities have a wide political context behind them. The white, cisgendered, heterosexual, neurotypical, able-bodied identity is not the only identity that deserves to feel safe at school. A world that passes this policy is a world that does not let teachers make all students feel safe. Last week, Leland & Gray hosted a guest speaker. She came to talk about anti-racism. I asked the question, is it possible for all students to feel safe in a classroom, school, and community that is politically neutral? She responded with a swift no. I agree with her. I do not think that a classroom proclaiming political neutrality can truly be safe for all students. When I say all students, I am referring to students who are Black, white, brown, indigenous, queer, trans, gay, disabled, neurodivergent, low income, and beyond. A community that does not clearly proclaim their support towards those groups is not safe. Too many people have been living under oppression for too long for it to not be made abundantly clear that they are safe. Many of these groups are still living under an oppressive government. That does not mean that schools need to follow the federal government's example. If it is overtly political for a teacher to ally themselves with marginalized groups, then perhaps school is not a place for neutrality at all, but a place for empowerment and change. I am also extremely concerned because the language used in the policy is vague and subjective. Here's an example. The use of the phrase good faith. The policy states, nothing in the policy is intended to restrict good faith instruction of history, government, current events, or civic participation that is consistent with the approved curriculum and applicable law. Who decides what is in good faith? I cannot think of a single teacher at Leland & Gray that would teach something not in good faith. Other questions I have include, how do you plan to enforce such a subjective rule? Do you truly believe that teachers do not already present information in a politically neutral light? I have taken history, English, and current events classes that have all talked about controversial topics, and never have I felt that the information presented was intended to sway students, nor have I felt pressured by teachers to adopt certain beliefs. If facts threaten your beliefs, perhaps it's time to reconsider. And I'm not gonna say the last question, I thought it was inappropriate.
Oh, hell, spit it out.
I will.
You know what, I'm happy to go after the two student ones, because I didn't talk to either of these students, and yet we echo each other so well. If you don't know me, my name is Ashley Matson, and this is my 10th year teaching English at Leland and Gray. The political neutrality policy up for discussion today attempts to define and restrict political perspectives in our schools. I'm here to address two things: why neutrality cannot be the aim of education, and why this policy is fundamentally flawed. After the Holocaust, survivor Elie Wiesel learned a devastating truth. The mass murder of 6 million Jews and millions of others was not a secret. The world knew. America knew. There was time to act, and we chose neutrality. And in that moment, neutrality made us complicit in these atrocities. Wiesel warned the world, we must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. I believe the board wants to support teaching with integrity, but neutrality undermines that. Nowhere is this clearer than in the policy's vague language emphasizing the need to teach significant perspectives. History is full of perspectives, once widely accepted, that we now recognize as profoundly wrong. For 246 years, it was a significant perspective that Black people should be bought and sold in the form of chattel slavery. Should this idea be legitimized in the name of balanced viewpoints? Absolutely not. Good teaching starts with honest information and equips students with the tools to think for themselves. It does not present all ideas as equally valid, yet this policy's language opens the door to exactly that. And if we can agree that not all perspectives belong on equal footing, then someone has to decide which ones do. And the board itself would have to take a side, because there is no such thing as neutrality in this kind of decision making. So what is this policy truly about? I too believe the answer is fear. Fear of discomfort, fear of controversy, fear of being challenged. Rather than protecting students, fear will silence teachers and deprive your students of the chance to grapple with real, complex issues in a safe educational environment. Our country has already learned that neutrality is not a safeguard, it's avoidance. Please do not let your fear dictate our classrooms, and do not move this policy forward.
Comment? Yes, go ahead.
Daniel Walton, new thing. I'm a good teacher at Leland and Gray, and I'm a taxpayer. I'd like to thank everyone who's spoken, and they've really covered the philosophical aspect of this. I'd like to speak about the practical aspect. So I'm a social studies teacher, and I'm teaching a unit on, after World War II, America's prosperity that we've all heard about. And the GI Bill helped build that prosperity. The GI Bill gave all the veterans a chance to buy a house, gave veterans a chance to get educated. With that house, with that education, they were able to build some wealth, have wealth to pass on to their family. So we learn about that. At the same time in my class, I mentioned that Black soldiers were not eligible by government policy for those same policies. They did not have access to the education. They did not have access to the home building. And in fact, it was also widespread policy of redlining, it was called, where Blacks couldn't even move out of certain neighborhoods and they couldn't move into other neighborhoods. So these are just facts all relating to the period of American prosperity in the 50s and early 60s. So one of my students goes home, and she's been thinking about it all day, and she says to her parents, you know, I learned today that Black veterans who fought for our country didn't get a leg up. They didn't get the same benefits as white veterans, and that really has trickled down and made a big difference over the years. And I think that's shameful. So the next day, the principal gets a call. My daughter has been shamed by your social studies teacher. Now, let's have an investigation. So your policy is pretty vague, so I don't know how you're gonna come up with your investigation. You'll come up with some way to investigate it. And even if the investigation says, nope, it was just facts, facts were presented, it wasn't any opinion, your daughter came up with the shame all on her own, you know, no problem. Even if that happens, and it would be, first of all, if that's accepted by the parent, that would be a miracle. And even if it was accepted by the parent, then that teacher, me, the teacher, So I've caused my principal to come, or perhaps the superintendent to come, or perhaps the outside examiner to come, whoever it is that's gonna do this deciding on what's appropriate, what's in good faith, what's good for our students. So the next time that I teach that unit, I might skip that. I might skip the fact that there's a whole massive inequity between black people's opportunity in this country and white people's opportunity, because I don't wanna jeopardize my job. Or worse than that, maybe my principal would gently suggest to me that, let's leave that. Can we not mention that? So we have some issues and we wanna just go along. Or even worse, the outside examiner would determine that that is a taboo subject. So you don't have anything in place to really set your investigation up with any kind of methodology. You don't have anything in place to really define what you're trying to talk about here. And you're creating a situation, as I just outlined, which took me about 10 seconds to think about, where teaching pure facts could lead to you wasting tons of time, energy, and money investigating students and investigating teachers, hurting morale, and further damaging this school system. So I would urge you to vote against this policy.
Other comments? Is there any hands up there? There's a glare here. No. Go ahead.
Mine I don't think it really has much to do with this. I am Tony Pelling, New Fame, Vermont. I have 7 children, 10 grandchildren. They've gone through this school. And I will tell you, there really has not been much change in these years of dealing with staff, how they deal with problems. I've got years with grandchildren and children. 7 grandchildren in this school right now. And from what my children went through to what these kids are going through, a lot has not changed. And it's very sad. And I have to say, on the assembly that you guys had last Monday with Tiffany Jewell, the book categorizes students into oppressed and privileged groups based solely on their racial and social identity. The frameworks can lead to feelings of collective guilt on some children, permanent victimhood of others, rather than fostering genuine unity. The text explicitly encourages students to become interrupters and activists against existing social structures. I believe the role of the school is to provide a neutral environment for academic learning, while political and social activism should remain a matter of parental guidance and personal choice. That I just do not feel that this book was age appropriate for some of the children that were gotten these books. And I'm just have to say, I'd like to know where the money came from to have them come and who bought all the books.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, go ahead.
Christine White, New Fame. I understand the teacher's point of view. They're dealing with the kids. What bothers me are statements like this: not all ideas are equally valid. Who decides which ideas are equally valid? And why are not all ideas equally valid? Because I have an idea doesn't mean, and you don't agree with it, doesn't mean that my idea is not valid. By saying that, you automatically cause division. You automatically cause unpleasantness. Neutrality is a very slippery slope if you're going to try to get there. I would think that there are some things that really don't belong in the education system. Some issues that are so, if the adults in the world can't decide them, how are you going to expect the children to decide them? That's just my 2 cents.
Any other public comment before we move on? Anything in the audience? Anything online? All right. Thank you all. We will move on to old business.
Drew, does it make sense, since the entire public comment dealt with this one agenda item, to push it forward rather than make them sit here for probably the next hour plus to get to when the board discusses this policy?
If we'd like to change the order, if that's the wishes of the board, we can.
I thought it might be
kick
worth
it out
discussing.
Out of order?
I'm not opposed to it, other than I would just also like to say that there may or may not be people who are planning to zoom in that expect it to happen later in the agenda, since that's what was advertised. That's the whim of the board.
Anybody else have thoughts?
Well, considering new business is supposed to start at 8 o'clock, we would be well into it and might be close to that, so they might be paying attention. I agree, I think it makes sense.
I didn't even think of that.
All right, then we will, if not hearing any objections, we'll go ahead and take the agenda out of order, and we will take up new business item 7A. We'll leave the rest of it in the agenda where it sits. So, policy committee, do you want to present the draft of the policy?
Yeah.
I don't have a packet, a board packet tonight.
You got one?
I didn't get a board packet.
Hey, Drew. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry, I'm not in the room. Couldn't make it in time. It might be a good idea just to introduce the members of the policy committee, because it's only a portion of the board who are on the policy committee. I'm not sure everybody's aware of that.
So
The policy committee consists of me and Crystal Correview. And are you on the policy committee? Yeah. Leanne is on the policy committee. Peter was on the policy committee, but is not on the board now after elections. So that is the policy committee.
all right.
Okay, so I will introduce the political neutrality in instruction and school communications policy. I wrote a thing so that I could not leave anything out. Hopefully I can be brief with it. All right. First, I want to be very clear. This policy is not a critique of our teachers. We deeply value the work they do every day, helping students navigate an increasingly complex world with care, creativity, and professionalism. This policy is meant to support our educators, not restrict them. It provides clarity and consistency while giving families confidence that classrooms remain places of balance, belonging, and open inquiry. I also want to acknowledge that some have voiced concern that this policy might limit teachers' free expression. That concern comes from a place of deep care for their profession and their students, and we all share that. But this isn't about restricting anyone's voice. It's about centering the experience of our students, making classrooms welcoming, inclusive, and intellectually open for every child, no matter their background or beliefs. This policy helps teachers to do exactly that, teaching how to think, not what to think, and ensuring that every kind of a diversity, including diversity of thought, has space to be heard. At its heart, this policy is about educational integrity and inclusivity of thought. It honors the idea that true equity includes intellectual diversity, the ability to engage with differing ideas respectfully, and to think critically about them. The goal is not to tell anyone what to believe, but to help students learn how to think, evaluate information, and see issues from many sides. That's what public education is meant to do. And it's deeply aligned with the spirit of the First Amendment, which protects open dialogue and the right of every student to form their own opinions. Some may wonder if a new policy is necessary, since many teachers already embody these values. But procedures alone are not visible to families and can change quietly over time. By adopting this policy publicly, the board sets a transparent and lasting expectation that supports staff while strengthening the community's trust in our schools. Public schools hold a unique and vital place in our society. They are open to every child, places where differences in background, identity, and belief enrich learning instead of dividing it. Not every family has the option of private school or homeschooling, so public education must remain the space where every student feels welcome, respected, and free to think independently. In the end, this is not a restrictive measure. It encourages more speech, not less. It protects teachers from accusations of bias. It protects students from one-sided influence, and ensures that our classrooms model fairness and intellectual curiosity. I think we can all agree our shared goal is to help students grow into thoughtful, compassionate, independent thinkers, people capable of listening carefully, reasoning clearly, and valuing perspectives different from their own. That's what this policy fosters, and it's something that I think everybody should be proud to support.
All right, anybody else from the policy?
Yeah,
Speak to it.
a couple things I want to touch on. Actually, some of it's feedback to comments that we've gotten. There was a lot of talk around the term of good faith being too vague. Good faith is actually a legal term defined by Black's Law Dictionary that's used in all kinds of policies. It's a very common term. I just looked it up real quick. I knew the gist of it, but I wanted to refresh myself. It's a state of mind consisting of honesty and belief or purpose, faithfulness to one's duty or obligation. And then when you get into more contractual good faith, it goes on to different commercials, fair dealing, not having an unconscionable advantage. So it is a term that is very common in policies and does have a definition. The other thing is this policy actually complements some of our existing policies. It goes hand in hand with our own district equity policy. Part of the implementation of that policy is to incorporate the voice, culture, and perspective of students, staff, families, and communities that reflect student demographics and support and enhance student success. Now, that's not talking about just one perspective. That's talking about multiple perspectives that need to be incorporated. The one problem I've had with this policy, and I don't know if I mentioned it out loud, is in its term neutrality. But I could not think of a better word to describe it. I don't mean the neutrality in the do nothing sense, stay neutral to a subject. It is literally more about balance, showing varying perspective, giving multiple viewpoints to allow students to think critically and develop their own opinions based on the information around them, and not a limited amount of information, a vast amount of information. I think that would go right along with encouraging additional speech. Honestly, Dan, can I use you as an example? Would that be okay?
No back and forth.
Oh, no, it was a permission, because I'm going to use him as an example. He had done a scenario with teaching who the GI Bill would benefit versus not benefit. Honestly, under this policy, the way that I've read it and hope that it's developed, it would require that information to be included in that discussion, not eliminate it. So that was just the last point I wanted to make. Sorry for the back and forth, but I don't like to use people as an example without their permission.
That's all the committee members that are present. So we'll open it to board discussion.
Point of information. I'm new to how policies are enacted. Before a policy is enacted, is this run by our legal representation?
This was run by legal representation.
And what did they suggest?
Let me, can I answer that in 1 second?
I believe the main legal perspective was to not make sure there is no infringement on the First Amendment, and to be sure that procedures were using only procedures was not sufficient in order to, if you're going to have a policy in place.
Yes,
Basically.
I shouldn't divulge legal advice in public. However, from the attorney, because it's supposed to be confidential, and you're the one asking questions, the only one that wasn't at the executive session that we did about this, but I will say, for the rest of you, his opinion after reading this policy did not change his advice to you about a policy adoption from that executive session. That I can fill you with after. Sorry.
Didn't know how things worked.
Yeah, that's all right. You'd have to have an executive session for me to share his response.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
No. No. Other comments from the board?
Will this policy be read? Sorry.
Okay.
I don't mind if you want to follow up with your question.
We've been talking about the policy, but we have not read the policy, and for people that may not have it in front of them.
We can put it up. I want to share it to the screen.
It's linked in the agenda.
That's linked in the agenda as well.
Yeah. It is in the packet, the other packet.
I first want to acknowledge and thank the courageous teachers and students who spoke. Your comments are like thoughtful and right-minded and incredibly well written. I have to say, students in particular, consider my socks knocked off. I'm really impressed. I think that this policy was truly drafted in good faith, but the fact that I oppose it strongly, and I don't think we should adopt it. I think that I think that the teachers and students put it very well. I will say, if the drafters are not sure what the words in the policy, the key term mean, it's not ready to adopt or present to the public. If we're not sure what neutrality means or how we're gonna define it, I don't think it can be applied. I just listened to what Leanne said and responding to that, like, I agree that it can't be reasonably defined and applied by, and it shouldn't be applied by the board or parents to how teachers are teaching, but I think the concerns that you raise, they're real, and these are great conversations to keep having, but I don't think we can adopt a policy that we're even sort of like not sure if we're using the right words for, bracketing my other concerns. I don't want to take all the air out of the room, but I don't think that we should move forward for a number of reasons, but that's an important one.
Can we verify the chat is turned off? Something advise the chat may be on. I want to make sure the chat is turned off because it looks like we have chat messages and we cannot have chat.
So if you could,
Thank you. All right, other comments from board members? There you go. That includes student board members. You guys are welcome.
As a student who's in these classes every day, 5 days a week for the whole 2 semesters, the whole school year, I have English classes and I have history classes. In no way do I believe that teachers are implementing anything upon us children. They're just strictly sticking with the curriculum that they're supposed to teach. They never want to. They don't want to pressure people at all, and that's not at all what they do. What they do is they just follow what they're taught to teach. They follow what they need to teach to inform us of what is happening. Like in current events of America, we talk about America all the time and what's going on in our political system. That's just how the class is. That's kind of my perspective. Another thing, the Monday book signing, book talking when the author came in no way do I think that had any pressure upon anyone. It was strictly just about a book that someone wrote, and what the book is about, and that's all that was said.
Okay. There conversation with board members or Joe?
Sure. So, typically when we are considering a policy, it's either something that has been requested by the administration because they feel there's some sort of hole in their tools, or it's a required state, policy that's been given to us. This is not required because it doesn't say required, and we have a whole bunch of the administration in the room. Is this something that you as a group or as an individual felt was necessary to, do what you need to do? Is this a tool you're looking for, or is this, not? Have you got the tools you need now, or is this something you need?
I mean, my sense, I'll let Dana answer, my sense is that you got what you needed from the attorney to be able to adjust your staff handbook to get what you needed out of it, correct?
Absolutely. There were two issues, and we have a very simple addition to the staff handbook that clarifies staff use of communication and also supports age-appropriate discussion. It's 2 short paragraphs, which I think serves the purpose. We also had signage on the school walls, and we needed to clarify our practice around that. And so I don't think this policy is needed. You didn't ask, but there's so much to it. I have concerns about how to navigate it when we could simply have the language that's going in the staff handbook clarified. It's just simpler. It's more condensed, and I think it serves its purpose. I think let the administration do our jobs and work with the staff. And I didn't mean that insulting.
No. That was my thought too. Is let the administration do their job. Is this a tool you need to do your job?
I don't think the policy will help me. I think it'll make it more maybe confusing, complicated.
Thanks.
So generally, policies that we adopt are based on a state policy, a federal policy. Is this also based on a state and a federal policy?
Probably not state, but you
No,
better check
this is not based on a state
federal.
policy, no.
Okay, so this is something that we created to fill an imaginary void.
It is not an imaginary void.
Okay,
It
I'm
is
just.
to fill a.
Sorry, it's my time.
We'll let the back and forth from that.
Yeah. So, this wasn't asked for. It's not a policy that is at either the state or the federal level. It is what I view as board overreach. This has been a trend of this board. And I agree that this should not be enacted. We continue to degrade trust between teachers and ourselves, and we're not supportive of the administration. And this is just another step in that direction, and I completely oppose it.
So, you're good.
Yeah, I just want to add a little food for thought. I think it's important to recognize the fact that when this draft was published on, I believe, your website, students took it into their own hands to read it, discuss it, analyze it, bring it up numerous times to many people, many classes, and I think that says a lot when it is not directly towards the students, it's towards the teachers, and the students are angry about this and questioning this and curious. So I think that's something we should definitely keep in mind is student reaction to this. Do the students like their teachers having to teach under this or not?
Other board members that have not spoken. Oh, Emily, I see your hand.
Thank you. First, I just want to say, wow, our students are very impressive at Leland and Gray. And I think that's a tribute not just to the students and their families and our communities, but to our staff as well. And so I just want to say that I'm not gonna take much time to say this, but I'm going to use Kate's words. I strongly oppose this policy for all the reasons that we've heard people opposing it, and I recommend we do not pass it.
All right. Any board members that have not spoken that want to speak before we open it up for round two? Good.
I believe Emily just said exactly what I was thinking. I'm not going to repeat reasons that have already been stated, but I also vehemently oppose this policy. And I support letting our teachers and our staff do what they've been trained to do very well and do very well.
All right. Any more comments or motion if we want to move this?
I have a comment. I hear a lot of conversation about, everybody seems pretty, I will use the word that I heard earlier, fearful about being restricted in what they can say. And that this policy would inhibit teachers' ability to teach their students and to put ideas out. When in reality, I'll just read the 2 sentences of what is real policy here. Staff must present political or controversial subjects in classroom instruction and school-sponsored communications in a politically neutral manner. And here's the definition part. This requires providing factual information from multiple significant perspectives to foster students' independent, fact-based, critical thinking and decision-making. And if we as a board have a problem with providing multiple perspectives to a classroom in order to encourage critical thinking in our students, that makes me as a board member very uncomfortable. The policy literally says, this requires providing factual information from multiple significant perspectives to foster students' independent, fact-based, critical thinking and decision-making. And to me, that is the least controversial thing I can imagine.
I haven't interpreted anyone's opinions to be saying that we don't want the students to critically think.
Agreed.
I think that we do have the same intentions with letting students critically think and not being pressured in any way, and that's not happening in our school, and kids are critically thinking in our school, so I think that's why everyone is not on agreement with the policy, because the policy may have good intentions, but the wording does not feel right.
So what would you say to the students that do feel that they're being pressured currently? Would you say that their opinions don't matter? Or, because there are students that have come to board members to say that they are being pressured with political opinions. So what do we say about those students?
Mac, do you have any answer?
I wouldn't say that doesn't matter. I would say that again, it's really what the policy says, and the wording of the policy. Like, if students have an issue with that,
I think obviously, as everyone in this room probably is, if somebody's feeling pressured, that's an issue, and we need to find where that's coming from and fix the root cause. And whether that's happening or not, if that is the case,
Recording in progress.
Don't believe that this policy will, in fact, help that root cause.
Agreed.
Other board members that want to speak again?
I would recommend that the board and the policy committee revisit bullying questions, if that, I think this may touch on that. Like, I think there are policies that overlap with what I understand to be some of the concerns. I don't think this is the right way to address them, though I would love to see us look at, if there's behavior that runs afoul of current policies. I think one of the teachers mentioned the anti-coercion policy. Like, I think those are conversations to have, and I would encourage the policy committee and the full board to return to the issue of bullying. I would say, in particular, among students, but we've seen some behavior that have left people feeling uncomfortable with social media and with other kinds of communications, and I think those are conversations to have. But I don't think those are the same as this policy conversation.
I would just say I would agree with that. I feel like if there's any pressure coming from anywhere, it's probably student to student rather than teacher to student. If I were to see any sort of like inappropriate political conversation, it would probably be between a student and another student rather than faculty and a student.
All right, so either we need a motion or we're gonna move on to another topic. So if someone wants to move the policy, we'll move it and we'll vote on it, or if not, then we'll end the conversation.
I will move that we
Warn it?
warn it.
All right, do we have a second to warn the policy?
Sure, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to warn the policy. Does not mean we're adopting the policy, it means that we're putting it up for further discussion and a vote at, it would be our next meeting. Well, it wouldn't, we have to warn it for a certain number of days, so depending if we have to have a special meeting, it may not be at the next, we may not want after, but it would be warned for a future meeting. So we have to warn it for at least
Adopting a policy is a two meeting process. You read it, first one, warn it, and then you adopt it in the second one.
All right, so people that made the motions, do you want to speak to your motions at all? Or we had enough conversation on the motions?
I would just say, to me, encouraging our teachers to provide multiple perspectives in a classroom is exactly what their job is. I believe that almost everybody is already doing this. I think that by passing this policy, it would allow the community to gain to rebuild some of that trust in the classroom, what's going on in the classrooms, and I think that it would give teachers the ability to not be accused of being biased. And offering multiple perspectives is a wonderful thing, and allowing our students to think critically, to understand that the world is a big place and there's a lot of different viewpoints in it, and that we can have conversations about it, is really important, and something that is lacking in most of the adult world these days is the ability to have meaningful conversations about difficult subjects. And I think that it's a very big missed opportunity if we don't encourage that through this policy.
Second to the motion, do you want to have any further discussion before we vote?
I mean, it's really just more of an echo of what Lindsay said. One of the byproducts that I could see of this policy going through, and I mean, a lot of it's done already. I'm not going to say that it's not in the classroom. You're going to rebuild the trust. You're going to have these conversations with the multiple viewpoints, and maybe we can learn that not everyone has to agree on everything, and you can still get along and be civil, and you can have, you know, a civil disagreement. I think it'll help overall.
All right, any further discussion before we vote?
Yes. What I want to add to that is, that's how I interpret what's happened tonight. Some really good, very civil conversation about a topic, with lots of different viewpoints expressed by people on the board, from staff, from the student body, from the community. And I think we want to echo, staff has heard this because I put it in an email today, it's unrelated to this point, but we have a staff member in the room who shared something with me after her return from China as part of the intensives trip. And what she said was, after all of her experiences in the culture, the language, and the traditions, and the pageantry of sitting with Chinese dignitaries and everything else, what her takeaway was that we're more similar than we are not similar. And so I think that that's a point that I think we can take away, even on something like this where we don't all agree on how to deal with a challenge that may exist for some people, and how do we talk about that. And I think we've done an excellent job tonight of being very civil about that. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for your participation.
All right, so before you vote, a couple of comments. I do believe, some are disagree with Al's position completely. I think this is very important that the board have these conversations about how we govern our schools. I think blindly letting the administration do what the administration wants and only acting on things that are sent to us by the administration and ignoring the calls of our community to do our responsibility as elected officials would be doing everybody a huge disservice. So I'm thankful the policy committee worked on this and put it forward, and I think it's really important that we continue to listen to the community, to look at what's happening in our schools. We do have a huge trust issue between our community and the teachers and the administration. Like that exists, and I hear that almost every single day as a board member walking through the communities, whether I'm at Riverbend, whether I'm walking through the hospital. I hear it every day, and we need to work on rebuilding trust. We need to make sure that we are approachable by the people that we are actually accountable to, not only the students, but also the public. So I do think it's important, and I appreciate bringing the policy forward, and I completely disagree that we can only rubber stamp stuff that comes from administration, because I think that's a terrible way for a school board to operate. So anyway, so we're ready to vote. Do you want to make another comment?
Oh, no, I have a question about procedure.
Yep.
So I'm used to voting yes or no on a, like, I don't understand the warned, like, what are we doing versus voting?
So-
what is a yes and what does a no vote mean?
Warning it means we put it up for the public to say, we're thinking about putting this policy forward, we're gonna vote on it at a meeting in the future, yes or no. So if we vote to warn it tonight, we put it out there and say to the public, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. And then at a meeting, which won't be our next meeting, likely the following meeting, we would then vote to either adopt it or not adopt it. So by voting yes tonight, it doesn't mean we're adopting a policy. It means we're telling the public that we're thinking about this policy, and we may adopt it at the next warned meeting after certain waiting periods. I think it's a month.
And you can also, I know we haven't done a vote yet, you could also, if there was,
I just want to make sure I understand what it is.
if there was a suggestion of a language change, you could have a friendly amendment to the motion to warn and change the language. And if Lindsay agreed to that friendly amendment, then you could continue voting to warn it with the adjusted language, if that was something people wanted.
We could also go to the next meeting after people have had opportunity. We could warn it tonight. And then we go to the next meeting and say, hey, I don't really like the way the language was, so can we vote this down and amend the language and warn it again?
Correct.
And we can keep doing that until the board has a policy or not that they're happy with. So a yes vote simply keeps the conversation moving forward. A no vote, I guess the policy committee could bring it back again if they chose to, but would end this particular conversation for tonight. Any other questions on what we're voting on? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
No.
Sounds like the nays have it, and it's a split vote, so I think we have to roll call.
Roll call.
Yep. So, I guess we'll just start in the room. We'll go around the room. Yea or nay?
Nay.
Yay.
Yay.
You guys tallying for me?
Abstain.
One abstention?
Abstain.
And can you say the names, please, so that I can hear
Yeah,
them?
that's,
Oh.
so Meredith, yeah, say your name and then
Say
your
your
vote.
name.
Fiona Chevalier, nay.
Leanne Gilson, yay.
Lindsay Bertram, yay.
Dana West, abstain.
Sarah Webb, nay.
Drew Hazelton, yay.
Al Glosson, no.
Kate Caring, nay.
Joe Winrick, no.
Emily Long, no.
She the one online?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. That's what we got.
Crystal hasn't made it in
Crystal's not.
Crystal can't make it.
She came up here.
So,
6 yeas, 6 nays, 3 yeas, and 1 abstention.
the motion does not carry. Thank you all. Now we'll move to old business. Survey.
So I guess do you want to give like a brief thing and then you can,
Yeah, sure. So, a very long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I think it was last spring.
so
Wasn't it?
very long ago,
Yeah.
I had this idea that I really wanted to find out more about who was in our district, who was staying in our district, who was leaving our district, what some of their reasoning was, with the goal of we need to be keeping as many people here as we can, and so how do we understand what is happening, and then can we take that information and make decisions that may encourage people to come to this district, stay in this district, or otherwise be our students. So
And summer interviews.
so much time passed, we came up with a survey eventually, we tweaked it like crazy, we put it out, we unfortunately.
2 surveys, actually.
We actually did do 2 different surveys. We did one survey to, specifically to homeschool families, because of how we are able to collect names and contact information for people. And we did another survey for people who have students in school, have or had students in schools. And we put that out there in lots of ways and shared it around, and had unfortunately not a ton of responses.
Well, the survey for the ones who had school-age kids or had them at one point certainly had a higher response rate than the home study one, which I think I had 1. And I reached back out because there was a question at the end of that about, if you have questions about this, please reach out. And I did reach out because I did have questions and I never heard more. But at least we tried on that one. But yeah, this survey was the response, the data from the one of families who had kids or currently have kids. And Samson, who's our data guy, tried to create some graphs and charts to show what those results were. I would say that there was a limitation. There was a certain element that Lindsay and I talked about, and Kate was involved in parts of this as well, to try to get at if they were here and left, at what point did they leave?
Right.
What grade level did they leave? And to see if there was trends there, to see if it was at logical transition times, or just try to get what we could get out of that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, probably the way we asked the questions or whatever, we weren't really able to get that out of it. And we've talked a little more since. I don't know if there's a good way to get that out or not, but yeah. So what we have here is what grade level did the student attend a West River school, and you can see it's hard to know what to make of that. That other than if the kid was in kindergarten, the family filled it out, they would mark K. I don't know if they could mark multiple grades. It's really, I don't know if this captured what we were looking to capture. But and then the ones about the people who left for non-district school, there was only 4 responses. So that was kind of limiting as far as the data, but it still had a couple key points. I think the meat of it really gets into sort of the strengths or non-strengths of West River schools as identified in these charts, which could be telling, could be action steps for the board at some point if it chose. And then including some narrative comments around what do we do well, what can we improve, and some charts around that. And then the last page was not from the survey per se, but this was similar to the data that Heidi showed you about where kids go. This breaks that down by three groups: pre-K, K to 5, and 6 to 12, just so you can see where our resident students go to school.
Those who live in the West River Education District.
Yeah. So that gives you a little bit more of a glimpse of that. So it's been a while, we apologize, but we finally have some data for you guys. I think it's up to the board to think about what you want to do with that data, if there's any conclusions you can draw from that. I don't know if you want to have a broader discussion about that, if you want to direct the administration to do something with it. It's your results, your data. How shall we proceed?
Start to try to figure out why. What does it change?
Okay, go ahead.
I want to say I think you did a great job with this. The questions are great. I think the visualization is really strong and really helpful to see it in different ways. I have 2 comments. The first of which is I'd be interested to hear, in particular from you, Lindsay, since you've led it, how you see us, if you see us using it in a certain way. And then my follow-up comment quickly is just that it would be great to keep tracking this, to have, whether it's our principals or superintendent, as families move through, to kind of keep collecting this information. I think that would be useful over time.
Yeah, I agree that obviously the more responses we could get over time, the better idea we'll have of what it all means. Having looked at what we were able to really get out of this, I think it would definitely be beneficial for, I think, everybody to like actually look at it on their own time and really sort of take a minute to internalize what people that responded think we are doing well or not as well. And then I think that it may help us when we as a board continue having conversations about what should our schools look like and what are our values, what things do we want to, really hold up here. I think some of those responses will help guide that, and also I think, again, I love that idea of just continuing to gather information over time, and if we can do that, I think it's just gonna inform us more about how we can continue to get better.
And we were talking a little bit about this as well, because if you look at these charts in particular, like the strongest strength is community and culture, which is the highest average score, and the lowest average score was life skills. And we were talking about, well, I wonder how people read that. Like, what do they think about life skills? I wonder if they were thinking about things like co-ops we were sort of reminiscing about how we had a moment back, I think during the long-term planning committee, where people were saying, well, you guys should do this, this, and this. And we were like, we do this, this, and this. They're like, wouldn't it be great if you had internship opportunities for kids?
It would,
like,
and we do.
And we do. And Leland Gray's been doing that since the 70s, literally. So it's like, maybe the issue isn't what we offer. People's perception of what we offer might be more about how well we communicate what we offer.
Exactly. But that being said, how we are perceived is just as important as what we are offering. Well, maybe not just as important, but very, very important also.
Perception is reality when it comes to things like voting on a budget and things like that. And we don't even know if that's what was meant by this. There might be other things that meant by this. So anyways, those are the kinds of things that you could dig into if the board chose to go further with that or what have you. But it was just some interesting things to kind of think about. Like, I think it's a point of pride that community culture is like our strength.
Absolutely.
Relative strength, I should say, with the other things in the survey. Academic offerings was not as high as community culture. Well, we're small schools, maybe that makes sense. I mean, anyways, so yeah, just something to think about. But I'm happy to help to lead the admin if you guys want to direct them at some point to do something with it. I can do that too. So,
are we good? Like to end this and move on? All right. Moving down, I'm going to skip the principal's report.
and there's one more old business. Oh no, sorry, we don't have that item back from old business.
We don't.
We do not. Okay.
You didn't put it in front of me, so I didn't. So you didn't put it here, so I'm assuming missing.
Can I say something about it?
Yeah, go ahead.
That you guys had authorized Drew to sign a contract with Windham to change how we reimburse them for transportation for secondary students. You did so, the contract went to Windham, they have not signed it. So they are working on that and they had questions, is the best way to put that. So we do not have a signed contract from them yet, and we may get it with suggestions for something different, we don't know, but we'll let you know as soon as we have it.
So we'll be skipping that. We're gonna go ahead and skip the principals and the superintendent's report and move to, under new business, item number 3, co-principal model and hiring. I'm sorry, but it is 8:45, so.
What?
I said, it's getting late, so we're gonna move.
That makes sense. All right, so just to rehash, I'll give you a quick review. You guys know at this point that Jessie Riemenschneider, our assistant principal, has resigned effective the end of the year. I don't think it's a secret for me to say that her reason for leaving is a burnout element related to the job of being an assistant principal for 3 years, and it's a lot, and it's a heavy lift, and she's been a staff member here for a long time, and so grew up here, if you will, coming right out of college, and has done a lot of different jobs and taken kids to China, so on and so forth. It's my experience, having also been an assistant principal for 3 years, that this is a high burnout job, and with her departure, Dana and I really started talking about, is there a way to kind of think about how to minimize that and to shift responsibilities around so that job does not become a turnstile of a burnout. And so we came up with this concept of this co-principal model, and as I sent you guys an email, seems like months ago, but it was it was after our last meeting, I think, right? Because it was in between meetings. Expressed that I wanted to explore this, I wanted to post for this, I wanted to go through the process, see what the pool looked like, knowing full well that the board still had to sort of, approve this shift. And that we wouldn't have a meeting until tonight to really formally talk about that. So we're in a holding pattern on the process with this, but I wanted to have the opportunity to share the rationale for it, what this would look like, and just answer any questions folks might have, and see what questions folks have and answer them. Just the hope. So hopefully folks had a chance to read this. I don't want to read it to you, but happy to answer any questions folks might have and about the model shift.
Bob, can you send me that email that you sent everyone else
Oh,
about this?
yeah, because you weren't on the board at that point. Yes, I can.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, never mind.
You have the document
It's the
here.
same thing?
I don't, I got it online.
This is the more refined version of the preliminary version of that,
Okay.
yes. But I can send it to you as well.
Appreciate it.
Anybody want to start? If not, my concern, I'll start, ask a question, money. So we nickel and dimed every program in every school, for 5 months, so I'm struggling with the idea that we support spending any more money after it feels like bludgeoning, the schools for so many months. So, what are we talking about for money?
Yeah, so on the back of the second page, you can see I have a range. It's hard to really know, it's gonna depend on the candidate. I estimated to have a cost above our existing administrative costs somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000. I wanna be super clear, I very much recognize that after reducing, programming and positions, even though the hope was to minimally impact kids, to have more money focused towards administration is not a great optic. I'm gonna put that up front. I know this, I get this, Dana knows this, he gets this. I think, I would say this, Leland and Gray is at a critical juncture. And I think as we watch what happens at the state level and we talk about our funding challenges that we've had as presented by Heidi, the use of surplus funds and how this is all gonna play out and the redistricting conversations and all that, I think it's really important to ensure that both parts of Leland and Gray, the middle and the high school, are really functioning at the highest possible level. And I think what Dana can tell you, and I can tell you from my 7 years here, it's hard to do both really, really well. You can focus on one for a bit, because there's so many other balls in the air that's really hard to really ensure. And they're both very, very different. And I think that's the rub. So if you factor in the long-term stability of the school and the marketability of the school, for me, yes, it's cost more. There's no way to sugarcoat that, but I feel like it's a short-term increase in cost. It's a long-term investment in the future of Leland and Gray, and I think it will speed the process of improvement and change for both the middle and high school. So, but yes, it does cost more.
Could I hear a little from Dana about what your thoughts are, how you?
Yeah. So Jesse and I have been talking for months about the progress that we've seen at Leland and Gray. And there's been progress over the past few years. And this is not meant in a negative in any way to any of the staff. The staff uniformly wants Leland and Gray to be better, and they want opportunities to push the ceiling. Just based on our schedule, the middle school team has had middle school team time. Administration could go into those team times, and over the process of a year, or 2 years, 3 years, all of a sudden the middle school team gels, makes decisions, they unify their practice, and they start taking steps. And I don't think there's anyone that could say the middle school hasn't improved. And so, again, I don't think it has anything to do with lack of desire. It really has to do with time. And Jesse and I were talking that the reality is, if we could switch to a different model, where we could have a person who could expressly focus on putting time in with the high school staff and helping them to unify their goals and develop consistent practices, you would see a similar shift at the high school. I would suggest this too. This is odd. I was thinking about it in the past couple of days. When I took this position as principal, I thought, oh, yeah. I thought what I'd be able to do is periodically have teachers share student work with me, take a look at it, sit down and look at the student work with teachers and talk about what are the students learning, what are you seeing that they're getting? And then talk about, based on your assessment or the work, like what are you seeing students are struggling with? What do you have to reteach? How are you gonna reteach that? I am not gonna get that in my current day. But I do think, and this goes back to marketing for like, why do people leave Leland and Gray? I think we gotta start talking about how we attract people to Leland and Gray, honestly.
Absolutely.
I think the staff here is excellent across the board. We just had the return of these intensives, and people have only raved about how great they've been, and they have been good. Our theater program, first time since 1937, we're going to, I thought it was States, maybe I misunderstood.
First time ever.
Since 1930, like, our music programs are fantastic, our sports programs are fantastic. We have great learning opportunities within the building. We have like the complete package, right? But that being said, teachers want to raise the bar for academics in the building. I talked with a number of high school staff privately, and they are encouraged. They felt that the principal assistant principal model has been here for a long time, and progress has been slow. Like I understand the idea of like, we don't want a person to burn out, but I think if you think about it from the opportunity to accelerate your progress, like that's my perspective on it. Like I think we can accelerate progress, and I think we need to be more proactive about attracting. Oh, we have second homers, great. Let's get someone to move up and have their kids come here, because you know what, I'd be willing to bet what we have here is more than what they're going to get in their schools wherever they live full time. The attention to each student. Didn't do principal reports, but thank you guys for bringing up the PLPs. Like, we're starting to individualize and pull student, staff, and family attention to learning on an everyday basis here. In the work that we're doing with PLPs, yep, we're not there yet, but I can tell you where we are is a heck of a lot better and further than many schools. Oh, a checklist? No, that's not a PLP. We're actually doing it. We have work. Students are looking and having discussions about what they're learning with their teachers, with their parents. We're doing amazing things here. But to be fair, I do think we could have a unified Leland and Gray, but I think each of the schools need a leader to work intimately with the staff and the students. I mean, I'll own it. I get a lot of props for my skills with students. I feel at times disconnected from students because all I'm doing is jockeying compliance, emails, making calls to parents. It's like I lose touch with what's going on with students sometimes. That's not playing to my strengths. I also know middle school. And I'm sure people are like, well, that's why the middle school is doing better. Maybe. I think it's really because of the time and the schedule. We've had to sit and talk, though.
Don't sell yourself short.
Well,
But the expertise is, I mean,
Sure.
targeting expertise to a certain area is really important.
But having the opportunity to have a conversation with people and build up that common alignment, and I'll give the staff props, like, they've done hard work, high school and middle school, they've done hard work. I don't know that they always see how far we've come, because they're pushing for more, and I appreciate that. We want to push for more, we want to push things to be better. I understand this may cost more money, but I think maybe we think about it in the way of like, how are we gonna recruit kids too? Like, augment your programs. We talk about PR all the time, who with time. Like, we've gotta figure that out, but if we divide it up, you have 2 people working, maybe you can get more done. Put ads in New York Times, I don't know. All right, I'll shut up.
I was about to shut you off anyway.
I have a couple of questions.
Good.
Am I correct in what I'm hearing is that you would like more time, or the administration of Leland and Gray would like more time to be able to help teachers enhance their practice for higher level learning? Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, they're asking for it, but you need time to be able to have everybody together and work together to,
Right.
like, yes.
So I'm curious what the role, so as an educator,
Yep.
there's administration and there's also coaches, right? So I'm curious why you're looking at having another administrator versus having an academic coach. And I'm also curious, the director, what is Renee's official title?
Curriculum.
Director of curriculum, like, is there a way for that position to help in that role?
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess 2 parts. One, we're not adding an administrator, we're just changing the model, so there's still 2 administrators. So it's the assistant principal role will go away. I think the curriculum director position can support and has supported, probably could do more. They are also spread out across the entire SU and all the buildings, and have been pretty key in the implementation of the EL curriculum. And so maybe more focus on the elementary and the early implementation of that, but as that begins to catch more, then there is potential for that. And that could address part of the challenge, but not necessarily all of it.
And I want to clarify too, because coaches play a critical role here. For instance, in the past 2 months, I've been pulled into middle school meetings with the teachers where we've started talking about the possibility of like developing our practices around retention and making it clear. We've talked about our practices around summer school. How do we help students who maybe haven't shown the progress that they need to? We actually started talking about, we have an aligned schedule now. Now we can start talking about accelerating middle school students too. So what is that gonna look like? But we need time to talk that through. Okay, that's great. Guess what? Dana's spending all his time with middle school teachers. Guess what he's not doing? Working with high school teachers. And they do deserve just as much attention and time and opportunity as what the middle school staff has had. So it's not really a coaching aspect. It's kind of facilitating the systems and structures and routines. Middle school teachers this year decided to do, they're trying something different around classroom management where they're implementing buddy room. They wanted to do it, we talked it through, and it's worked really well for them. It's been great, but you have to be there to have a discussion with them and support them with it. But the high school needs that time too. And you could say, well, why aren't you doing it with both? It's like, it's only so much time. I mean, and I love the high school staff. They are, like, they're pushing. They want things to be better. And I think they deserve that opportunity, so.
Maxim.
Just to triple check from my, so the co-principal model, the new administrator would just be for the high school, or would you guys for the whole school?
So to be clear, we would both be principals of the school, but we would both have our sphere, right? Like somebody saw me today down on, you know, well, no, we don't want you. I'm like, I'm your principal, right? It's like, yeah, no, they didn't want me to. They're like, can you be high school? I'm like, we're not there yet. You know, they're like, don't leave us or whatever.
So
It's like,
you'd still be our principal,
Yes.
just we'd have like 2 principals.
yes, I mean I think honestly for students, you're gonna have 2 principals. Middle school principal will specifically deal with middle school students. You're gonna have to deal with high school students at times too. If you think, I don't mean this way, but if you think I'm gonna walk by and not say something, that's not gonna happen. So I think there's a benefit to students too. You're gonna have 2 principals. We're gonna split discipline. You should see more of us.
Okay. And then another question would be, you said the reason for this is because we've struggled with accelerating in the past. Would this new model like accelerate us faster? Or
Well, we're making progress. Like I think you experienced it somewhat.
Yeah.
But I think you'd also agree, we have a ways to go,
Mhm.
right? Our hope would be that with 2 people working, focused on the different aspects of middle and high school, that we could bring about change with the staff at a quicker pace. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If I'm not clear, ask.
I will.
Good questions.
Is this gonna be an increase in support staff, assistant to a principal? Are you gonna share the same assistant? Or are you gonna be coming back saying, hey, I need an assistant?
Share the existing.
Can I hold your word to that?
Yeah. Yep.
In writing?
Well, there it is. Yes. Yeah, no, it's just one position is shifting its role.
So Bob, you've done a great job here outlining what, the co-principal structure would be. I'm at a little bit of a loss though, in my brain trying to define our current structure. And structure. Jeez, it's getting late already, isn't it? Other than discipline, which is obviously highlighted here for the assistant principal position, how else is everything distributed between the 2 positions currently?
Well, I would say right now, the 95% of the student management is on the AP. And you pick up the slack when there's overflow.
I mean,
she's out.
yeah, I definitely help. I mean, the other thing you have to talk about is assistant principal does all the HHB work on their own. It can take days of interviewing students and doing the paperwork to get one done. I mean, it's buggery.
Yeah. So by splitting that load, you're allowing, kind of freeing people up to have different experiences. I think that in an ideal world, the AP would have an even number of staff, let's say, to evaluate. I don't know that she's been able to give
Reduced
number. Yeah.
Reduced number 7. And I've honestly, like, if she comes over and is like, Dana, can you, like, I drop things and go.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, if anybody else hasn't talked, I think I may have already asked a question.
I think we're around 2 now.
Okay. Sorry. So you talked a lot about how a co-principal would help Leland and Gray as a whole to accelerate improvement. And that sounds amazing and like something everybody wants, for sure. But when you got into the details of it, I heard a lot of the reason that the middle school has been successful in this so far is that they have had more time to talk it through together as a team, and that's been very successful for them. And that's what the high school needs. So
With him.
immediately, I was like, hey, remember that scheduling thing we talked about forever ago? Because we only have 4 blocks in our high school right now. And it does not seem possible in my mind. And I understand that scheduling is insanely difficult, but when you only have 4 blocks to choose from, it must be even more hard to come up with a time for teams to get together in meaningful ways. And I love the notion of this improvement happening at the high school level as well, but I'm concerned that it's less of a, it's more of a time scheduling problem than it is a manpower problem. And I'm not convinced that having co-principals will do anything to actually fix the problem of getting the people together in the room to make the meaningful change.
Yeah, that's a good question. So one thing that we talked about was there was a process where the staff had something that was called a community council, where the teachers would meet regularly to meet with administration. But by being available to the high school, the administration could meet with staff through the day if they so choose, but also being able to meet with them after school. I know the middle school team is talking about having like 15-minute micro meetings next year after school. Like every day after school doing micro meetings with administration. Okay, that's great. Where are you going? With a co-model, you can easily split it though. So, like you could have one at one and one at another. Like I think you need proximity to your staff. One of the things I learned going through my administration program is like a staff meeting isn't really where change occurs. It occurs through your conversations day to day as you walk and talk with people one-on-one. We need proximity, you know, and you need time. We did a lot of reflecting, and it's like, it may not sound completely clear, but I do think like time and proximity is what the high school teachers deserve, and I think it will help them.
And I would just add, I think the focus of each of the codes helps push that into effect as well. So
yeah.
You're seeking out those opportunities for conversation more so than maybe you would have if you're sort of principal of all and struggling with a lot of different balls in the air.
There's different needs.
You can be hyper focused.
Yeah. There's different needs at the two levels.
I'm just curious what teacher feedback has been about this model.
Yeah. I've heard from, like, in conversation with 3 or 4 people, encouraging. I don't think we did a survey. But even today, as we work through interviews, like I know the middle school staff is in favor of it, but I think the high school staff is too. I haven't heard anybody push back on it, honestly.
I haven't either. I've met with some sort of, what I would say, key veterans on the staff who thought it sounded like a great idea to them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm going on.
And to be clear, like I did have some conversations with folks at the high school level before I went to Bob. So
would they think it was a great idea if it involved more RIFs of teachers? Because that's what we're gonna be talking about next year.
That wasn't the calculus in the conversation, of course.
I mean, like,
no, I hear you.
We just went through a brutal budgeting, right, and where we had to reduce staff, and, you know, we heard some very passionate conversations from staff members that were like whittling away at the edges of services. And if you look at all those things, like the 25,000 you're talking about, like we just barely hit 25,000 by, you know, beating up art, music, and, you know, library at all the schools. I'm still just struggling after this budget round. Like I'm struggling with the idea that we're going to undo that work, and then next year when we already know that we have no more fund balance, right? We already know we're gonna take a massive hit next year, and then we're gonna absorb another $25,000 in this administrative role. Which teacher are we gonna lay off in order to fund this position? Or what program are we gonna have to end in order to fund this position?
I guess my response to that would be, when you're in those situations where you really have to be thinking critically about what to do and how to deal with things, it might be beneficial to have people who are more highly focused on elements of the building to give more thoughtful feedback to that too. So like that's another way to think about it, is that if you have people who are really like dialed into the middle and high school respectfully, that they might be able to have more insight because they're able to pay closer attention to that particular area to be able to not yet throw the names up for the RIFs, but to be able to like look at how it runs and look at the functionality of it, decide whether or not it is the most efficient way to do things.
The structure doesn't bother me, it's the funding, like
Sure.
if you could do it cost neutral today, I'd be like, sounds like a great plan.
Yeah.
But I'm just still struggling with the money aspect, and I wanna make sure I let Maxon speak.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, Drew mentioned it, but like, if this didn't go into place, would it still be the way we have it now? And would the new principal, it would just go to the way it is now?
We'd be hiring an assistant principal to replace Ms. Rieberschneider.
Okay.
Do you think that would change candidates?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, most likely yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll just be quick about this too. I think the thing too is like, it feels like we don't know what the state is doing. Well, I mean, I guess they don't really know what they're doing, right? But if we can take a year or two to dig in, develop our programs, figure out how to do PR, we're not doing any. Figure out how to do PR. We might be positioned to not only have the state give us more support, but I do think like looking into why people disappear, leave, but also like what are our town rates for second homeowners? Like, how do we reach out to them? Like, do we go to the town clerk and start papering? Like, I cannot believe that there aren't families who wouldn't love to bring students here away from urban areas to experience what our kids experience here.
It has been my experience that administrators that are building based are more effective than administrators that are district based in how they can positively affect the teaching staff. So I think your model is a great idea. I would encourage you to think about redistributing the administrative staff at the WSU level that is district-wide to be more place-based in their scope of influence, because I think they would have it would be much more effective. So if there's a way that you could redistribute, and I know WCSU deals with all of the districts, but if there's a way to redistribute so that there could be 2 co-principals here, rather than having a WCSU administrator that is focused on teaching and learning and a curriculum director, that might be more effective. Something to consider rather than saying, it's gonna cost $25,000 more. How can we leverage the current administrative staff to be effective?
Yeah, I mean, that would have an impact on all the other schools to the benefit of Leland and Gray, which I don't know that all the other schools or districts would want to consider. And it's an entirely different budget area, and so
But if it just costs $5,000 more, then there perhaps could be a coach that could be at another district that could be place-based between the 2 schools at River Valley. Like there's ways to be creative, and I understand that they're 2 different budgets, but I think it's worth thinking about, because I do think at this point, asking for more money for an administrator is gonna be a really, really hard sell. While I agree that I think the model long-term is really, it makes a lot of sense because it's very directed, I think it would be a very hard sell to the community. And as an educator, it's a really hard sell.
All right, so we're gonna either make a motion or we're gonna cut off the discussion for tonight, but one or the other's gotta happen now.
So I will make a motion.
All right.
Having heard all of the comments, let me put it together real quick. I would like to move that we accept this co-principal model, at a cost not to exceed the position it's replacing from our already passed budget. And not for more than 1 year, so that we as a board can make a meaningful conversation about what the future looks like and evaluate how effective this was.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Point of order, we don't have a passed budget?
I said
That's next week?
approved budget.
You said passed, but.
My bad. I will amend my motion. I meant to say the budget the board has approved.
All right, so we have a motion.
Emily raised her hand.
Thank you, Emily. Are you seconding that?
I wasn't, sorry,
Okay,
I wasn't seconding it, but I was waiting for a second
Right,
so I could ask
okay.
the question. That's why my hand was up.
All right, so is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Now we'll take discussion. Do you want to add anything as a motion maker and a seconder?
I would like to add that I realized that motion was a little hodgepodgey, but I love the idea of having a co-principal. I think it is a gigantic ask to ask our community and our taxpayers to pay more administrative costs at this time. And I just want to try and figure out a way that we can move forward with this, that nobody gets burned at the stake, that everybody improves and things go well. That's my thoughts.
Leanne?
I was trying to move it along, and hopefully maybe there was maybe a clarifying amendment to that motion. It was a little
I'm more than happy to
confusing
accept
follow.
supporting.
But I did want to keep the meeting moving along and open it up for discussion. So, and for my 2 cents, I love the concept that you've come up with. My biggest hinge point is the cost. I mean, we reduced farm and school. We weren't putting any more into that because it was going to put us over.
Back in. You put that back in.
No, additional, sorry. Sarah's motion for additional
Yeah.
because it would have put us over. So, and now we're looking to do an administrative role. Yeah.
So if I understand the motion is to approve the model change, but with no additional expenditure.
Correct.
There we go.
So what I'm gonna say is, I don't know if that's a possibility, because you'd have to get somebody at the rate to be a co-principal of the current assistant principal. So just wanna put that out there. So if I can't fill the position with that cost, you've already approved the model change, what do I do with that? So that's my concern about how you phrase that.
Okay. Emily?
Thanks. So that's sort of along the lines of what I was trying to ask about. Is the motion to say we approve the model, which I support the model as well. And I'll say quickly why. I think that if we're going to see improvement in the areas that we need to see improvement in, it's going to take real focus. And what we need to be doing is, as I believe Dana said it at one point tonight, we need to be attracting students to our school. So I support the model. The question I have is the motion to hire for that position at the amount of the assistant principal, or is it we support the position, but we want you to do it within the budget that we have proposed to the taxpayers if they pass that budget next week or on the 8th? Because that's 2 different things. Yeah. And because I agree with Bob, I don't believe there's a way to hire a co-principal at that rate. So I'm fine with we move things around after we pass budgets pretty regularly. And so if that's an option, I would support that.
So can I reply to that? My concern with that would be that the whole point of this is that I don't want to eliminate those teachers and those programs that we've already gone through such great lengths to try to keep. I am unwilling to accept this model if it means that in a year or whatever, even if we agree to spend more money than we have right now, that we're going to be making those cuts again. So I don't want to say that we can pull from anywhere else in the budget, because I don't know what that means, and I don't know if that means that somebody else is, or some of what other program is getting cut when we do that.
And that was my exact point, I guess. It's that I wouldn't make a recommendation specifically on where that 15 to 25,000 could be found, but I would expect the administration would be able to make that recommendation.
Thanks, Emma.
Okay. I wonder if we can also ask, or well, I'm curious first to ask, like, what your, given the budget situation we have, how would you allocate that, or where would you find that money, or where from, right? Like, just like what would you recommend with this problem on the table, and then working from there. I wonder if we can ask you to push a little harder, both to sound out these various options, or to come back, if with more exploration, a higher number is necessary, like help us understand how we stick with the budget choices we've made and protect that. And I just want to add one small comment, which is I would suggest that we think beyond like a year model, like help us think about this, not just for this year, but for 3 years down the road, because I don't think it will serve the aims that like we're reaching for, to have like a sort of more turbulence. So even if it's a little slower process to develop that right now, and with all the uncertainty granted, but I think maybe thinking like whether it's a 3-year or a 5-year or however this grows might help us think about the longer term budget consequences too.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify the difference between Lindsay and Emily's two things that they said, because there's still a difference.
Yeah.
And so you're asking me to think about how I might pay for the additional under sort of the Emily model of, you have a budget, you have a bottom line budget, things move around, figure it out. But the original motion was to not spend any additional money whatsoever, as I'm understanding it, from anywhere else. And so, I could spend some time with Heidi and Dana looking through the budget and looking for places to try to make up that difference, if we thought we could move something and come back to the board with that information. But if the motion goes as voted, that's not what you're directing me to do. So, and I will just say this, like, I understand the position I'm putting you guys in by asking this, and Dana does too, but we'll say this, I guess I would rescind my request if the motion is as Lindsay has expressed it, because I just know it's not gonna be a viable product with the exact same expenditure in a salary benefit line as we currently have. I just know that. I know the market, I know the candidates, I know the pool, I know what people earn. You're not gonna get what you're looking for that. If there was a friendly amendment to authorize us to explore further ways to find the money without reducing any sort of programming to kids, then I could do that. I mean, we could do that work. I can't do it obviously right this moment. I think timing is always a challenge in this too. So like, I don't want to wait until mid-April to come back and have what my response to that might be, if the motion even did change, to have then be waiting, and then, my posting for an assistant principal in the meantime. And it's like, the longer we go, and again, this is not intentional to put you guys in a jam on this one, I'm apologetic on that, but the longer we wait, the weaker the pool's gonna be, which undermines what we're trying to do. But that's also true even if we're doing the traditional model of an AP, the longer we wait, the weaker the pool's gonna be, and that's gonna make it even harder. And could disrupt continuity further if that person is not the best possible candidate even for an AP job, whether or not they will last even 3 years is, you know what I mean? Like, it's just there's a cycle there that we're trying to avoid with this model change as well, and so, yeah, I don't know if that answers you or not, Kate, I'm sorry. I'm happy to look if I was directed to look.
Well, let's let everyone ask their questions first, and maybe I'll come back.
I was just gonna point on that, so would you entertain a friendly amendment to allow for the administration to vote for that, and still with the same budget?
I would entertain a friendly amendment with restrictions, I guess, right? Like, so, I mean, I don't want, when we say, like, I guess maybe define for me what you consider student facing. You suggested looking in the budget as is, and not eliminating student facing.
We were talking about, Rue was talking about RIFs, is how it was originally brought up, so I'm thinking without, I mean, it's, the timeline of this isn't gonna allow me to do that anyways, because I'm gonna be, too far along in the contractual side of things, but, not that I would suggest that, but, when we're talking about student facing, I mean, the budget is salary, benefits, supplies, equipment, contracted services, that's all it is, so, I mean, it's gonna be something that may impact kids. I don't think there's an easier way to put that. But what I am saying is I'm not going in and be like, well, we'll just take away something from Newbrook or take away, I'm not looking to just replace it with some other thing and then say, well, so those kids will have to suffer so these kids can get that. That's not what I'm talking about. And I don't know that they'll look up the full 25 or 15 even. I don't know. We have to look through.
Seems like we shook all those bushes. I feel like we
it's
looked for all those savings.
It's gonna be hard. I don't disagree.
All right. Yeah.
Sorry.
Heidi had mentioned back when we were doing the budget proposal on holding off on the SU assessments because there may be grants available that we weren't originally considering or didn't think they were going to be there. Sorry, it's so late.
No, right on, yep.
Now, I'm never one to count chickens before they're hatched, but do we have any idea on what type of impact that would have on the SU assessments that we get?
If it so I'm thinking we're gonna get around 220 in some grants that I haven't estimated for. And since those grants typically go into the MTSS budget, you're talking about a 53% use of let's just say 200. So your assessment is definitely going to be reduced in that case, probably
115.
That's what I'm thinking. I think that's fair to say.
And when would you find out about?
This won't be until probably August.
That's a little late for us.
Yeah, I do have some conferences coming up with the AOE about the title grants, and I'm planning on asking this question, and they're coming up in April. It's just that I'm not expecting the AOE to give me any concrete answers yet because the funds haven't transferred from the federal government. And last year they said they were coming and they withheld them for a while, but they eventually came. So there's a lot of ifs. Yeah.
So at this point, I don't think we've actually amended a motion.
We have not actually
So
amended.
We're at our original motion, and we
So-
either need to amend it, vote it, or do
I'm happy
something.
to amend my motion. Does somebody want to suggest? It's way too late for me to suggest words, obviously, because you heard the first one, guys. So.
Well, I don't know if this is an amendment. And I understand that it would be a different pool to ask when you are hiring for an assistant principal or a principal. Is there a way to hire for someone saying it would be an assistant principal for the first year with the possibility of transitioning to a co-principal the second year? Because I think that would be a conservative way to approach this, because with this timeline, I don't feel like to say we could allocate funds when we don't have them, I don't think is fiscally responsible. But I do understand that it is a window when you are hiring someone, so you want to find the right person for this. Is there any way to hire an assistant principal with an eye to moving towards a co-principal in FY28?
Yeah, I mean, the short version of that is we deny the model, we hire an assistant principal, and then next budget year we talk about it again. But yes, that's what that would look like, yeah.
I would recommend that.
And it would be sooner, obviously, it wouldn't be me bringing something to you guys in March, so.
Right, and if,
Yep.
as soon as we have the money, you could say in September, we have the money, could we move to this model, and we could approve it then when there's funds. That isn't amending that at all. It just threw a wrench in everything, I apologize.
All right, so we still have the original motion on the floor, so Are we,
I'll take a shot at an amendment.
all right, go ahead.
Just essentially to support the model of co-principals, with, while maintaining the board-approved budget, you know, as
Expenditure
your
budget.
expenditure budget, you know, and explore how you're gonna move money around. I mean, everything in that budget affects students. So to say, we're not gonna do something that affects students, this decision affects students. We've heard it. You know, it's gonna allow for more quality administrative time and teachers to do a better job teaching and push things forward. So, you know, to try and say, don't touch anything that does students, it's like, that's our whole budget. But, you know, go ahead and do this and explore how you can do it, and you know, maybe we can get a miracle of that we're gonna see this money, and I don't care if we wait till August to get the money or September to get the money. As long as we get the money in the end,
Right.
we can make things flow to move forward with what we need to do. But I mean, I would just say support the model and not to exceed the current expenditure budget.
All right, that was offered as a friendly amendment.
Sure.
Will you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Can I edit that friendly amendment? Am I allowed to
No.
do that? Then no.
All right.
Now, can I offer a different friendly amendment, or can I just amend my amendment now?
Or you
'Cause I
can,
think
we can vote an amendment. We can go either direction.
I think I got it.
All right, go ahead.
I'm gonna amend my motion to be that we would accept the co-principal position for 1 year. Okay, with not to exceed the board-approved budget, and also not eliminating any programming or like direct teachers. Is that the right word to use, direct teachers? You can tell me if you want me to use it. Student-facing teacher, well, like teachers. Can we just say teachers?
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I'm gonna say, teachers. So,
right.
without eliminating programs, so find the money in the budget without eliminating programs and without riffing teachers.
I'm not sure how you handle a friendly amendment to your own motion, but.
That's what I did.
I think that creates.
You're right. I'm being friendly to myself.
Yeah, I'm not
I'm
sure.
being friendly to myself.
Well, it would just be, she would be amending her motion.
I'm just amending my
You're amending your
motion.
original
There is no
motion.
friendly.
As a second, willing to accept the amendment to her original motion.
sorry, you throw
Fair, fair. You don't have to.
I just wanted to ask a question, so what happens if you, this is a technicality, but you're authorizing a change to administrative model based on this circumstance. If I can't meet the circumstance, you've already voted to change the model, where does that leave me?
Well, it's an if and, so.
Oh, so if I can't do it, I'm authorized to continue to post as a traditional model.
That's
As long
what
as
I
that's
took.
how
Yes.
I'm understanding it, I
Yes.
don't wanna
Yeah.
have me handcuffed and be waiting for another board meeting to try
That
to
is my-
figure that
We
out.
do
That is my
have, I don't know if we can add to either of the agendas, but there's one meeting next week and one meeting the following week. So if you all have time and bandwidth to like push this a little harder, like the board could.
You and I have talked about this, it was a very aggressive agenda, and we knew this was gonna be a late night, and we're already had a conversation around, we might have to have a special meeting prior to the annual meeting to get through some of these agenda
As long as
items.
we're talking a lot, like let's push this a little, like enough harder to see what else you.
I don't know if a
Make it
week's enough
happen.
time to do that, but yes, maybe, sure.
All right, so where we're at in the
That's our
room,
hand raised.
as far as I know. Emily, you haven't spoken, go ahead.
Thanks. I just want to remind us that when we do positions like this and say they're for 1 year, we change the pool of candidates. And I am very concerned about the 1 year piece. And Bob or Dana, if you want to speak to that, I think you should. But that 1 year piece really worries me. Because I think this model, I'm not going to repeat what Kate said, but I think it's important that we make a commitment to the future of Leland and Gray. And if we're going to try this model out, that is a commitment, not a 1 year, let's try it out.
All right, so where we're at in the room is we've amended, you're offering an amendment to your own motion. And the person that made the second, are you accepting the amendment to the motion, or are we starting, we're back to where we were here? We got a motion on the floor.
I'll accept it.
All right, so we're at where Lindsay says, which is, you wanna repeat yourself?
Oh,
1 year.
of course I do.
Not removing any programs.
Right,
And not exceeding the bottom line of the budget.
that's the one.
I think that's where the 3
And
points that you made. in
if
your motion.
and, then you, and
Yeah.
if not you.
All right, so that's where we're at.
Can I ask
Thank you.
Bob's reply to my question about whether a 1 year is gonna change the pool?
If we're advertising as a 1 year shift, then yes, you're gonna change the pool. If you're directing me to hire someone in a model with a 1 year contract, I would do that anyways for a first year person. And then we could explore it later, so we're not necessarily posting as a 1 year, we're just offering a 1 year contract with the conversation to continue about the model later. I mean, I would let the person know that the board has had this conversation so that they're aware, but yeah, but it could change the pool, you're absolutely right.
So is that what we're asking him to do with this motion? That's what I guess I'm trying to get at. Are we asking him to post and tell people this is only a 1 year position? Because people are on probation when they're first hired anyway. I just want to strive for the best candidate possible.
We have offered multi-year contracts, and that's part of, in recent years at the SU level, there's multi-year contracts.
Not for first year.
No, not for person.
Yeah, not for first year.
I identify more with the second scenario.
Sure. I'm in. Leon's gonna, do we need to make words again? Cause Leon's gonna do it now.
It was the, you know, the automatic 1 year contract as it's a probationary period for a new hire.
So we understand that to be the meaning of the 1 year. All right, are we all in the same place in the room?
Sorta.
We're voting on, currently our motion is staying within the budget, not taking away programming for kids, and a typical contract for our first year employee, so it's not 1 year, not multiple years. That's where we're currently at. That's the motion?
Yep, that's the one.
Everybody clear on the motion? Are we ready to vote on the motion? All right, we'll start going around the room. Name and vote, yes or no?
Fiona Chevalier, no, I'd like to wait a week to have more information.
Leanne Gilson, yes.
Lindsay Bertram, yes.
Dana West, no.
Sarah Webb, no.
Drew Hazelton, no.
Al, yes.
Kate Earing, I will say, sorry, I'm trying to remember, whether it's a yay or a nay, I'd like more information, like, I'll say, yay, but I like, sorry, I've lost track of where we are.
So it's a yes.
Yeah, but with the caveat that I'd like you to come back, so, okay, then.
Yep, you can't have
I
caveats.
can't reserve.
Nope.
Can you come back to me for a second? I need to think this one through. I'm sorry, I
Okay.
do.
All right, Joe and Rick, yes.
Emily?
Emily Long, yes.
Oh God, I wasn't even counting.
Everybody help you out?
There's two
5 to 4, yes, favor of yay right now, so the no vote ties it and ends the motion. The yes vote passes the motion.
And can we just clarify for my brain, if we don't pass this, we're gonna just
We stay.
stay where we were and we'll have to talk about it again?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I just needed to know where we were.
We can bring this up
No
next week.
action
if it
Yes.
passes.
stays the same.
If it does not pass, we can bring this forth next week when we have more information.
I'll say, oh no.
But we have candidates hanging fire, right?
I mean, I'll say this, in the meantime, I will post for assistant principal if it's if we don't have a passage of this, and then we'll, just so I can start collecting candidates for that as well.
I'll say, in that case, because I know the process, like, I'll say yay, and I wanna add a point of discussion that's important. I wanna hear, no, I wanna hear back next week, like, what what's
Status
actually
of the
cooking.
situation,
Cause
yeah.
I would
I think
rather
that's
have us act
fair.
again next week and unwind this than not know what's going on or have it kind of die on the vine. So I'm like, continue the, I know we're out of time, but I'd like you to continue the conversations you're having and also to push the budget exploration and come back to us. I, like, whatever this yay is, it's not a fine or a nay, it's not a final situation, right? Cause we don't have the numbers to, like, it is.
We'll have to vote to approve a contract at some point.
And whether it's gonna be an assistant principal or a co-principal, right?
All right, so what was our vote?
It was 6-4 in favor of the motion, whatever that motion was.
Oh, we got them.
And I will report back next week with an update of where we are, with some financial analysis, with some suggestions, ideas, and an update of where we are in the process.
All right, it is very late, so I think we're gonna need to, is there anything else that we have to pass tonight that we cannot push off?
Well, the only thing I would say that you really ought to do tonight is the correspondence from the WCEA, because it's a contractual matter to make a deadline. I would say that the other stuff could wait a week if you're talking about postponing to a special meeting prior.
Okay, so let's, unless there is somebody that strongly opposes, we will move to article number, or item number 9, or new business correspondence, and we will then postpone everything else.
Have a great night.
Good night.
No, you can't.
Sorry. Hope you can stay on the school.
Kids have had such a long day.
It's a Monday too, which makes it
Yeah.
So do we have that correspondence? It was not linked to the agenda.
Yeah, it was nothing in
There
it.
was nothing in that folder?
There was nothing in that
No.
folder, right? Checked like 5
You hit
minutes
it?
today.
I think we've sent it, have we included it before though?
I don't,
No.
No.
It came after the
I've
last
never
meeting.
seen anything on it.
All right, well, let me try to explain it, if that's okay. Can I try to explain the correspondence? You guys can jump in. In the CBA, there is, under the reduction in force article, there's a series of sub-articles under that, and one of them gives the board the right, gives the association the right to have a discussion with the board prior to RIFs being made, but after they've been contemplated, I think is the language, to ask questions about said RIFs. So that's, in essence, the union has taken their contractual right to request the audience with the board to discuss RIFs that are in the budget. And if you wanna rehash what those RIFs are, Heidi presented, it was on the reductions page.
Point 1 music, point 1.
Yep, a pre-K teacher, and they're representing, this is the professional contract, not the sports staff contract, so a pre-K teacher, a .1 of a general music teacher, a .1 of an art teacher, elementary, a .5 of an elementary librarian, 0.5 technically, I guess, of a Spanish, 0.33 of an English, and a 0.1 of a high school instrumental. Is that track with what you guys are looking at?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what they're here to ask questions about under the contract.
So, sorry, I'm not feeling well. Thank you for adding us to the agenda. Our goal is to support our members in a transparent manner and be able to communicate the need for the anticipated reduction in force so they can continue to support our students throughout the rest of the year.
So we have 5 questions which were shared, but hopefully they'll be clear enough. And I will ask the board chair, but obviously we'll take a response from anyone sitting at the table. Our first question is, what financial data, projections, and enrollment trends demonstrated that a reduction in force was necessary?
So I'll pass it.
I mean, yeah, so I'll say that the wasn't so much about enrollment trends, as I reported earlier, the enrollment was even or up in the long-term weight ADM. It was more of a function of the increased costs everywhere and trying to get to the spending threshold.
Okay. Okay, what will class sizes look like with these reductions and how will it impact student learning?
Let me take that one too.
So we're not really asking the board then, we're really just asking Bob.
Well, I hope the board could answer these questions, that's all.
But
But
I
yeah,
mean, the board can jump in. I would say if they want to. It's,
I mean, and I can ask, so we had extensive conversations in public session about the impacts of these reductions on students, where the administration did present details about how students would be impacted, and the direction that the board gave to the administration was to find as little, to identify programs that would have the least amount of impact. We also did look at for example, the preschool numbers, and there's a fair amount of data that was provided to us, which is also in the packet, about the trend of preschool and the availability of space in Townsend, including looking at the size of the classroom and the space. So it was determined that based on what we had for available data, that it would not have a major impact on student programming or class sizes.
what alternatives to a reduction in force were explored? And why were they determined to be insufficient? Were any alternatives explored?
Well, there was a list of other reductions that were also made, and they were not found to be sufficient to reach the threshold.
Right, and then what opportunities will our students lose as a result of these RIFs? Are there any opportunities that you guys know of that they will definitely lose? And how does this align with the district's long-term strategic goals and its responsibility to maintain educational quality?
So 3-year-olds.
Yep.
Will not be able to access programming in our district with this reduction. That's probably the biggest impact to students as far as programming goes. I think the elementary reductions actually don't impact student programming at all. They still have the same amount of time with kids as they did prior.
Students will not have access to a librarian 2 days a week in the high school.
That is true, yep. But they will have access to the library because there will be a person manning the library.
But that is not programming. They will lose access to library
Sure.
programming 2 days a week.
No.
So I just want to just state for the record that this, in Article 14.3, is part of the question and review process for reduction in force. And I hope you can understand why it's important that we as the association need to be able to, have a collaborative process when Bob comes to us and then our members come to us and go, and we could say that confidently through this process that I'm not going to say that we support the administration of these RIFs, but we can account for them and understand them and explain them. And so that's why we're here today to ask these questions. So I want to thank you for your time today.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And I would say in addition to that, there's also a right of the staff who is being reduced to meet with me, to also meet with me directly and personally to hear about that as well.
And we encourage that. And
Yep.
that was great.
With association present, right?
With association present, yeah.
That's what we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, it is 10 o'clock, so what's that?
You'll pick a time for the.
We are going to have a special meeting, Warren, we're going to take up some of these other agenda items. We are currently scheduled for 7 o'clock. How much time do we want to give ourselves ahead of our 7 o'clock meeting to do some board work?
Well, let me answer that by asking another question. Are you going to try to revisit things like the principal super's report, or are you going to just take the printed text for that and move on?
I would suggest that everybody review the printed copies of those reports.
So you have a couple of contractual contracts to consider. Greg has a quick thing.
The policy we can push till
There's
next
some
month.
policy stuff we could push. The tuition request probably should do that.
Greg is away at a conference next week.
Yeah, but he'll have information that I think we
You
can
can just
share.
present.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you'll have minutes. So, I mean, well, actually, and you still have an executive session for for superintendent evaluation, but you could probably do that at the other April meeting. So, I mean, I think if you met at 6, that would be
Alright.
sufficient. So we want a tight ship.
We'll be very efficient, meeting at
Okay.
6 o'clock.
No marshmallows.
Alright.
So we'll get materials out, so 6 PM will be a special meeting to clean this agenda. 7 PM will be the annual district meeting, which will go through the articles that you've adopted for the vote. And the next day is the vote.
Do we need to do the financials tonight?
They could be done, I think the members have approved them online, so I think it can be done at the
Okay.
next week's meeting.
Yeah,
Alright.
me and Joe did it,
Yeah.
so it's.
So that should be good.
Bob, you said
Well,
another
busy.
April meeting. When is our
Sure,
other
sorry.
April meeting? Do we have another
We
April?
have a regular April
We
meeting.
have a
The
regular
annual meeting is not your regular meeting. That's your annual meeting.
It's not showing up in my board
This is
calendar.
On the 13th.
Yes, the
Oh,
13th.
it is.
I got you guys, my bad. It's so late. Thank you for bearing with me.
Is it late?
Yes.
It's already tomorrow. My phone just
I didn't
turned
realize.
off, you guys. It said go to bed.
All right, do we want to keep meeting or does somebody want to end this meeting?
I move we adjourn.
All right, all those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So we have.
Right?